Good afternoon, everyone. Namaskar. Welcome to the Merchant Digitization Summit organized by the Government of India, FICCI, and UN-based Better Than Cash Alliance with technical support by Intellicap. We are delighted to have all of you amongst us and representatives from several state governments, union territories, and the industry to discuss the important agenda of digitizing merchant payments towards Atmanirbharta, or self-reliance in Himalayan and northeastern regions and aspirational districts. I'll just go over some logistics. Participants' microphones will be on mute. There's a chat box for conversations and questions at the bottom of the screens. The recording and slides will be sent via email to all participants. And now over to our packed agenda. We have set aside 3 hours today to discuss digitizing merchant payments and how it can be made to work for women merchants as well. We are delighted to have Mr. Dilip Chinoy, Secretary General FICCI, who will deliver the opening remarks. This will be followed by keynote addresses by Shri K. Rajaramanji from the Ministry of Finance and Srimati Simi Chaudhary ji from METI. We also have a guest speaker who needs no introduction, Reema Nanavati ji, who's the director at SEVA, a Padma Shri awardee as well. And our most important guest for today is a woman merchant who's joining us from Assam, Maushami ji, and she'll speak firsthand about her journey of digitization and the roadblocks she faces that hopefully we can address. We have more sessions with speakers from Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, Madhya Pradesh, Jharkhand, and many more states who will talk about their initiatives in digitizing merchant payments and their partnerships with the industry. We also welcome National Payments Corporation of India, State Bank of India, NABARD, Hindustan Unilever, Procter & Gamble, and PhonePe to talk about their partnerships and programs. In all our work, some areas have emerged, such as in how self-help groups or women cooperatives and business correspondents can be enabled to accept digital payments. This will expand the infrastructure. Prerna Saxena from Better Than Cash Alliance will present on these key areas and also moderate a discussion about how to enable these as opportunity areas. I now hand over to Better Than Cash Alliance Asia Pacific lead, Ms. K. Zong, to deliver the opening remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Namaskar and good afternoon, esteemed guests, Additional Secretary Rajaramanji, other senior dignitaries from the Government of India, the Secretary General, Shri Dilip Chinoy ji, and all the 8 different stakeholder groups of the Responsible Merchant Digitization Summit. The Government of India, the Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry FICCI, and the UN-based Better Than Cash Alliance hosted at the UN Capital Development Fund today bring together leaders from the public and private sector to accelerate the Digital India mission, putting in sharp focus the responsible digitization of merchants in India's northeastern and Himalayan regions and the aspirational districts across this great nation. We're talking about tens of millions of merchants catering to 1.3 billion consumers. And these include small stores in more than 660,000 villages and 8,000 cities and small towns across the country. They're important to everyone, to the government, to the banks, to FMCG companies, and many others. And India's person-to-merchant digital payments are expected to reach Indian rupees 33 trillion by 2025 from a mere 4 trillion now, an enormous opportunity for digitized merchants. However, most digital payment solutions by the private sector and innovators is designed for smartphone whose penetration among merchants in these very focused regions is low, where connectivity is not as strong as it could be. And these are important priorities for the government. An industry-level approach, including the wholesalers and distributors, an important stakeholder group with relationship-oriented networks that can be scaled and digitized with merchants, is required to address the unique and fundamental challenges, including gender targeting in national, regional, and state-level merchant initiatives. And although the challenge of reaching all corners of this beautiful country is huge, we have a powerful set of 8 stakeholder groups coming together today to drive progress. We have representatives from the state government, of course, from the central government, from the states. We are thrilled to have Andhra Pradesh senior leaders, Telangana's Jayashree, Sikkim, Jammu and Kashmir, Manipur, Jharkhand, and many other states, and over 20 select private sector partners, including NPCI. We also have NABARD and SEVA representing the community mobilizers, the self-help groups, and the important rural networks. A very warm welcome to all of you. If you look at the objectives, the 5 key objectives of today's summit, they are to highlight specific policy measures by the government to accelerate merchant digitization towards self-reliance goals, to showcase successful examples of how state governments partner with the industry to solve for digital payments challenges that were exacerbated in COVID-19, and key lessons to scale in the focus regions of the government, the Northeast, the Himalayan regions, and the aspirational districts. The third is to provide a strong rationale for prioritizing women merchants. They play an important role in many of these regions, and they need to form an important part of how we set targets and work towards this goal of digitizing merchants. The fourth is identify specific opportunities for the industry to work together, particularly partnering with self-help groups, with rural regional banks, with women-centric cooperative banks, for merchant acquisition in the focus regions. And the last is to develop an action plan for engagement with key commitments towards achieving India's vision and the Sustainable Development Goals. If you move to the next slide, let me spend a moment to reflect on the COVID-19 challenges that led us to this important conversation today, responsible merchant digitization in the focus regions. We know that digital payments has a pivotal role to play to help people deal with the health and economic crisis that was caused by COVID-19, and of course, assist them in exploring new opportunities. 1.2 billion or 90% of India's population has access to digital identity, and it's the law. In 2015, the government opened millions of bank accounts for low-income financially excluded people to receive social welfare transfers linked to their digital identity Aadhaar. Thirdly, there are over 100 million active digital payment users accessible on smartphones, to a lesser extent on feature phones, and for those using without phones, there are biometrics to access payments. And lastly, India is world's #1 market for smartphones. So as more data comes online, India is already recognizing privacy as a fundamental right by the country's highest court, and allows people to own and use their own data for their benefit. These are important and concerted efforts taken by the government and the industry over the last 5 years, which makes a great story and a spotlight for India on the global stage. During COVID-19, the government responded swiftly and with speed. And while leveraging the great digital public infrastructure for relief and response, COVID highlighted 2 contradictory and critical facts about digital payments for meeting the needs of India's vulnerable population. On one hand, because India had a working digital payments backbone and an activated bank accounts across the country, it meant that delivering money to those who needed it, those who were targeted, such as women, was swift, was easy, and leakage-free. But on the other hand, it also put a spotlight on the fact that there are significant last-mile challenges in ensuring that the money deposited could easily reach the intended beneficiaries, and the fact that they needed cash in hand to be able to meet their daily sustenance and emergency needs. And to support cash out, the government innovated with speed with the private sector to include viable alternatives such as PDS systems leveraged as last-mile points. And I recall the many meetings that we had where the government was really working to design solutions that could be scaled. And what's remarkable is the government's commitment to inclusion. While there were significant exclusion, especially for women and migrants due to the glitches in identity rail, there were transaction failures and access to cash out was difficult. This brings us today to why it's really important to focus on the important role that merchants can play, the merchants that you work with in your daily work as banks, as payment companies, as FMCG companies, as state institutions, as civil society, as state governments. True inclusion. There's an incredible opportunity, especially for the 80% of India's merchants, many vulnerable, many women who still face fundamental barriers to access, to use the digital goods to improve their lives. So what does it mean from a policy point of view? To build real inclusion and responsibility to the beneficiaries along with the digital public infrastructure, we need to give equal prominence to the non-tech layers such as governance, the community that you are part of, which are critical if these platforms are to work for ordinary citizens. As a global leader, while India shares its phenomenal success, there's also recognition to share the challenges, particularly in terms of championing a holistic ecosystem that includes all the 8 stakeholder groups to innovate and collaborate together. For this pandemic and the next one, while celebrating success, it will be important to ensure that the critical digital financial infrastructure works for everyone, and responsible digitization of merchants is many steps closer to getting this right. With this, I'm going to request Secretary General Fiki to make his opening remarks. Over to you, Mr. Chinoy.
Thank you, Kezom, for that beautiful opening statement and setting the context. Mr. K. Rajaraman, Additional Secretary, Department of Economic Affairs, Government of India. Mr. Simi Chaudhary, Economic Advisor and Group Coordinator, MITI, Government of India. Officials from state government and industry, and of course, Kezom and Prerna Saxena from Better Than Cash Alliance. A very good afternoon to each one of you. And it is a privilege for Fiki to be a part of this very important peer exchange session on merchant digitization. This is a subject which is a clear priority for us, and all different aspects within FICCI, including a fintech committee, has been working in this area for substantial amount of time. The growth of digital payments as a safe and convenient medium for financial transactions, and especially as Kezom mentioned during the COVID, what would have happened, but that was primarily DBT and not really merchant integrated aspects. But two aspects during the COVID pandemic actually accelerated the concept of digital payments. The first one was because in the initial period of lockdown, there was a focus on contactless delivery and contactless payments, whether it was the e-commerce companies or whether it was the even local neighborhood merchant, right? And everybody was actually working towards that. PwC and FICCI actually prepared a detailed report on the possibilities of actually boosting this ecosystem. And one of the bottlenecks identified was the availability of manufacture of POS terminals in India. I think there are 4 C's which we need to actually look at when we look at the whole digitizing merchants payment. The first one, and this is the context for that, is if you look on the data for POS density data, 8 major urban centers, Delhi, Mumbai, Hyderabad, Bangalore, Chennai, Kolkata, Ahmedabad, and Pune, account for approximately 35% of the POS terminals in the country. 2-tier cities, 7 of them, Coimbatore, Lucknow, Cochin, Chandigarh, Visakhapatnam, Surat, and Jaipur, account for about 6%. So therefore, if you look at the main areas of focus in this seminar, is that the northeastern states and aspirational districts of India, the penetration is very, very low. And how do we actually find alternates to POS machines and other aspects of digital payment going forward? Of course, the RBI has announced the creation of a digital payments development fund to encourage acquirers to deploy POS infrastructure in tier 3 and 6 centers in northeastern states. It's a welcome step. The incentive announced in the budget for digital payments and the focus on allowing no audits for companies that have a certain percentage of digital payments are all driving to adopt digitization in the country. As per a recent survey of merchants conducted in the POS study, I think QR and UPI-based payment is also emerging as the top preference of customers. And that is also a good sign because that is also digital payments. Merchants in India are a heterogeneous group. In fact, if you go into the interiors, in the same shop, you might see the family actually operating. Each one of them has different mobile phones, different devices. Connectivity varies, as Kezom said. So the first challenge is how do we actually create an ecosystem for digital payments that includes connectivity? If online connectivity is a challenge, can we look at limited, offline transactions for certain values that are allowed to be transacted in especially these aspirational districts of the northeastern states? The second is that the consumers need to be educated on the advantages of using the cash alternatives that are there and how it actually will benefit them. In fact, if you look at the availability of cash and banking system in the country, and if you look at small, and we do have Ms. Reena Nanavati from Seva actually speaking later, and I'm sure she'll give great insights into that. The third thing is that as consumers, right, and for a long time, the government and various agencies are looking at how to incentivize consumers to move to digital payments. In the early days of GST, there was a kind of a lottery system. If you submitted your bills, you got a kind of an award or a cashback. Can we look at how to incentivize consumers to actually migrate towards digital payment? And of course, the community of merchants should see the benefit here. And the challenge here literally is the last C that I want to talk about is building confidence. In fact, when Kezom presented, she talked about the large percentage of failed transactions. So how do we develop confidence amongst the entire user community, the merchant community, that the transaction once done is actually complete? It will reflect in your account and it will look going forward. So if we look at these activities and look at developing the ecosystem that promotes connectivity, promotes both online and offline transactions, both POS and non-POS and digital cash systems, looking at getting the consumers on board through initial incentive mechanism, getting the community of merchants actually on board, and building a confidence in the whole ecosystem that digital cash is very easy to actually go forward when you look at it. I think FICCI will actually work at responsible digital merchant digitization. We'll facilitate a greater dialogue on privacy, consent, and other aspects of digital payments to empower merchants. We will advocate to our members to collaborate and design solutions that are unique to the challenges of the Himalayan region, Northeast, and aspirational districts. And of course, through champion women merchants among our FMCG and payment committee members at FICCI, and also include this in the greater 50% initiative that we have launched focusing on women entrepreneurs. So with that, I would like to actually end here, and thank you for this opportunity for FICCI to participate in this discussion. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chinoy, thank you so much for these great commitments from FICCI. We are already off to a great start. Thank you again very much. May I request now our keynote speaker, Mr. K. Rajaraman, Additional Secretary at the Department of Economic Affairs at the Ministry of Finance, to please make his remarks. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Kezom. And first of all, I would like to say hello to all of you, Mr. Chinoy, Madam Reena Ben, Mrs. Simi, and all the other distinguished participants on this conference. So first of all, a very good afternoon to all of you. It's a great privilege for me to join all of you in this Merchant Digitization Summit organized jointly by the Better Than Cash Alliance, FICCI, and the Government of India. So I would like to first of all congratulate and compliment UNCDF BTCA for their continuous, unfailing, and tireless efforts towards universalization of digitization of payment systems, especially with a reference to equity and justice. So we are very pleased to be part of their efforts. The focus of today's conversation is on finding solutions to the unfinished agenda of the merchant digitization process, which the government had unlocked about 5-6 years ago. So the focus today is largely on areas where there is need for greater penetration, like the Himalayan regions, northeastern regions, aspirational districts of India, and so on and so forth. So it's a very, very important and desirable objective that we have put before ourselves. So it's very important that not only these backward regions need to be focused on, but also underrepresented groups such as women merchants, citizens from rural and backward regions. All of them are the targets of the next financial inclusion drive, as well as digitization drives. So we believe that both the central government, the state governments, the business community, and civil society, all of us would be very happy to work with each other to ensure that we are able to deliver these objectives as soon as possible. So I would like to also acknowledge the presence of Ms. Rima Nanavati for joining us today as a civil society leader. And I'm sure that she will be able to highlight how we would be able to reach out effectively to not only such regions, but also to women who are very important stakeholders in the development process of our country. The objective of this conference also is to look at responsible digitization, as Mr. Chenoy had mentioned, to ensure that it includes rural networks such as cooperatives, self-help groups, community enablers such as local chambers of commerce and trade, local and sectoral business associations, consumer organizations, etc., to create local digital systems to help millions of merchants to join the formal economy, access credit, and grow their business. So I also would like to compliment the efforts taken by MeitY, Ministry of Commerce and Industry, the Department of Financial Services, and the National Payments Corporation of India, as well as the regulator, RBI, who have been taking great steps forward in accelerating the movement towards this direction. So the role played by state governments is critical to deliver the Honorable Prime Minister's vision for a digital India. And Telangana, led by their Principal Secretary, Mr. Jayesh, Sikkim, Nagaland, Jammu and Kashmir, Bihar, Jharkhand, and many others are taking wonderful efforts in various different ways, which we all will be very, very happy to hear as part of this conference and probably replicate in many other parts of India. So, as you are all aware, there are India is about 40 million merchants, of which 10 million are retail stores and 500,000 are distributors. But less than 2% of them have been digitized. So, there is a long road ahead of us. So, I'm sure that this is a journey worth undertaking, especially given the fact that this would deliver substantial public welfare benefits. Now, if you look at the various kinds of services which are there, especially in such areas, which include agriculture services, transportation services, retail services, there are a number of services, including the street vendors and other categories of small and micro businesses. So, if India has to achieve the vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, obviously every segment that has been mentioned here needs to be covered and included into this process of digitization. Now, if you look at the trends in merchant digitization, I think we all are aware that digital payments can revolutionize the commerce and enhance credit, and also enhance the potential for revenue generation for both businesses as well as for the state and central governments. So the debate has to move beyond the MDR related issues to additional ways of serving this segment, and also focus on bridging the gap between the urban rural areas and also probably various economic classes and so on and so forth. And examples quoted here are worth noting. For instance, that was also pointed out by Mr. Chenoy, that the gap between the POS transactions per month as against ATM transactions, which run to about 1,200 per machine per month, as against 70 per transactions per POS per month. So there is a huge gap in actually utilization of the current merchant infrastructure. Similarly, if you look at the RuPay card, though 600 million cards have been issued, there are only about 128 million transactions per month, which averages out to probably less than one transaction per card per month. So there is potential for for actually effective utilization of the RuPay card, which in my view requires a lot of efforts, not in just issuing the card, but also enabling the users to actually to make full use of it. So I guess the entire system includes the banks, merchants, the consumer organizations, civil society organizations like self-help groups and farmers group, etc. All of them have to come together to understand how there will be substantial common and individual benefits by effective utilization of such infrastructure. So even if you look at the case of Beam Aadhaar Pay app, I think the utilization has been hardly of the order of 1 million transactions per month, which means that with a POS base of 1 million, that is hardly one transaction per month per machine. So essentially, if you want to look at a $5 trillion economy, I guess we need to look at how to reach out to, say, 12 million kiranas, which directly employ about 45 million people and account for about 95% of India's 500 billion food and grocery market. The merchant digitization processes can pave the way for digitization of backward linkages and also help, as I already mentioned, improving the supply chain, enhancing tax collections for the state, and also leads to substantial improvements in the quality of assessment of the GDP. So with the overall the person to merchant space likely to reach about 33 trillion Indian rupees by 2025, I guess digitization is the way forward to actually to attain this goal. If you look at the 4 key drivers of which are responsible for digitization of merchant payments, I think the first of all is obviously the overall backend infrastructure, which is very, very critical. That is mobile internet connectivity and the smartphone infrastructure. So unless we focus on this last mile bit of infrastructure, I guess we would not be able to do justice to the work that is before us. So I'm sure that the Department of Telecom with its aspirational districts and northeastern states telecom infrastructure projects, which have been undertaken under the Universal Services Obligation Fund, in which works are underway. We believe that the quality of mobile internet connectivity in such rural areas, hill states, and northeastern states would substantially undergo some disruptive improvement. So we look forward to that, and we hope that the faster we achieve it, the faster would be the penetration of digital and other forms of public services. So I would also feel that the ability of merchants and customers to adopt digital transactions, as I already had mentioned, would depend upon the availability to actually to train the rural and certain special category merchants to enable them to use this infrastructure effectively. So I would feel that we need the banks, NPCI, and other payment system operators need to very positively engage with capacity building networks, including NGOs and other and organizations like SHG, self-help group federations, and so on and so forth, in building the capacity of such micro merchants to utilize this infrastructure. Spreading awareness and educating merchants on the use of digitization, and especially in Tier 3 and Tier 4 cities also is a very important thing. Similarly, there is also a need for creating the right kind of incentives. What Mr. Chenoy had mentioned, I think there are a number of budget announcements, including the MDR refinance, which is being given to NPCI, and a number of tax benefits for digital transactions, and so on and so forth. So in addition to that, I think the RBI's PIDF, the Payments Infrastructure Development Fund, will have to be purposefully harnessed by the payment systems industry to actually to enable this outreach of infrastructure to aspirational districts, northeastern and Himalayan regions. Now, we also have to understand that responsible digital payment would require a substantial amount of principles to be embedded in the various services that are provided by PSOs and the other people in the value chain. So, including, say, ensuring the safety of funds which are of the consumer, designing products which are easy to use, convenient, comfortable, and bridge the financial literacy divide, including issues like transparency, especially on pricing. So every time a consumer transacts on a digital payment app, there must be clarity as to how much money, how much cost he's incurring for such a transaction. So such kind of transparency right on the smartphone would actually enable the users to make informed and correct choices. So there is also a need to promote the growth of smartphone infrastructure across across India. I mean, there are many state governments which have launched schemes of provision of smartphones to persons below the poverty line and so on and so forth, which I believe is a very good initiative to get such persons introduced to such effective tools of managing finances effectively. And also it's an excellent tool for businesses, for very, very small and micro businesses. So we also need to look at the efforts focusing on women, because essentially, I mean, as Kisom and her team have actually been highlighting for several months, women have been left behind in some ways in the use of digital technologies. So therefore, there needs to be a catch-up phase in which I think there has to be a special focus on women to ensure that the women who drive our economy are really put on the driver's seat and put in control of all these technologies, which can be used for both family as well as for business development. Now, I would therefore end by saying that a number of limiting factors such as low literacy, I mean, absence of consumer-friendly technologies such as voice bots, chat bots, and so on and so forth for use of less informed consumers. I mean, getting over the issue of connectivity, mobile internet connectivity in rural areas, and also a need for collective and a community level support for deployment of such technologies are some of the last mile issues that need to be crossed over. So I am sure that with the efforts of all the stakeholders who are gathered today, I'm sure that all of us would be able to do that. I mean, including the payment system operators, state governments, local chambers of commerce, consumer organizations, cooperatives, SHG federations, etc. And all of these, if groups harnessed together, can certainly lead the charge on in enabling this public good to emerge in some time from now. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Rajaramanji, for reminding us again of the important priorities for setting the stage for the discussion that is to follow. Thank you once again for your remarks. I would now like to welcome Simi Chaudhary, Ms. Simi Chaudhary from MEITI, the Economic Advisor and Group Coordinator on Digital Payments. Over to you, Simi ji, for your remarks.
Thank you, Gizom. Namaste to all the ladies and gentlemen present here today. And at the outset, I would like to extend my thanks to FICCI and BTCA for organizing this very meaningful deliberation at this juncture, and also to giving me an opportunity to be part of it and to share my views, and also to make everyone aware of the government's perspective with respect to MEITI, the Ministry of Electronics and IT of Government of India, in this domain. And Rajaraman sir has already highlighted and covered it so extensively. I don't know what much can I add to that after his very extensive discussion of how things are currently, what are the challenges that we are facing, and from where do we have to draw out opportunities to convert those challenges into our strengths. But nevertheless, since we are talking of Atmanirbhar, or a self-reliant India at this juncture, and as that is the focus of this summit, I would like to mention that the Digital India program of the Government of India was launched in 2015, and that program takes forward the pioneering vision of our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji for ensuring digital access, digital inclusion, for bridging the digital divide, and leading to digital empowerment. As a result of this combined strategy or combined focus areas, we are endeavoring to transform India into a knowledge-based economy and a digitally empowered society. The Digital India program has ensured digital inclusion of all through providing access of robust digital infrastructure created under it. As a result, the connect with the rest of the world has been facilitated. It aims to weave together a large number of ideas and thoughts into a single comprehensive vision to ensure that the benefits of development reach each and every citizen of the country in equal measure, along with faster and timely service delivery. And this, I think, is the crux of sustainable development. It has also ensured citizen participation and empowerment of the citizens with technology that is transformative, affordable, and sustainable. The government is committed to provide governance and services to the citizens in an affordable and efficient manner within the shortest span of time. Presently, India is in a sharply accelerating lift-off phase of its digital journey, and the use of digital technology in financial services are increasingly offering new ways in bringing the poorest or the most vulnerable out of the financial darkness and into the mainstream. Having built a strong foundation of digital infrastructure and expanded digital access, India is poised for the next phase of growth creation, of tremendous economic value and empowerment of its citizens by leveraging our strengths to attain the aspirations of billions to build an Atmanirbhar, a self-reliant, strong, secure, and sustainable India. Having built this strong foundation of digital infrastructure and the expanded digital access, India is now heading towards the next phase of growth creation of the tremendous economic value, in which the promotion of digital payments has been accorded a very high priority by the Government of India to bring each and every segment of our country under the formal fold of digital payment services, thus leading to realistic and meaningful financial inclusion. The vision is to provide facility of seamless digital payment to all citizens of the country in a convenient, easy, affordable, quick, and secure manner. The high-level coverage of Aadhaar has helped accelerate access to these services and has ensured financial inclusion on a very large scale. The JAM Trinity, Jan Dhan, Aadhaar and Mobile, and DigiDhan, the Digital Payment Mission, are proving to be the biggest drivers of the digital economy of the country, wherein we aspire to reach the value of $1 trillion by 2025. Increased use of digital payments in the country has brought in transparency, convenience, and speed into a wide spectrum of digital transactions. METI, who has been assigned the responsibility of promotion of digital transactions, including digital payments, we had set up the DigiDhan mission in June 2017 for promotion of digital payments. And this mission has been the primary catalyst to promote the digital payment ecosystem in the country. And we continue to endeavor in this direction. Digital payment transactions, as we all know, have been steadily increasing. The DigiDhan mission is also involved in creating and enabling infrastructure, evolving appropriate standards, and ensuring security of the entire digital payments ecosystem. There has been stupendous increase in digital transactions, both in value and volume. Transactions on the UPI platform have grown exponentially. The transaction value on Bheem UPI actually increased from 0.72 crore in April 2017 to more than 230 crore in January this year. The payment acceptance infrastructure has also been growing. A fintech COE, a Center of Excellence, has been established at Chennai to create a vibrant ecosystem by enabling startups in the fintech sector to create innovative solutions to address the challenges in the financial sector. And the COE also has a sandbox environment of the NPCI. To take this growth story to those areas where there has not yet been a total mainstreaming of the citizens, the NER, the Himalayan region, and the aspirational district. In fact, reaching out to the hardest to reach citizen and to bringing them into the mainstream of financial inclusion. The DigiDhan mission is putting special focus on these areas. METI is promoting digital merchants payments in the region in collaboration with the banks to drive acceptance. We have set targets for ourselves for merchant onboarding for banks in the regions, and we have set up a monitoring mechanism as well to regularly track the progress and to plug in the gaps that may get noticed along the journey. The government is also constantly motivating the stakeholders to promote digital payment transactions in these regions, in communication to the banks, and by planning several initiatives that are focused specifically on the Northeastern region and other states of similar topography. And we are planning to scale up our work in the NER to the entire Himalayan region as well. METI has organized a campaign of 100 smart cities in the past, which has seen a very significant stakeholder participation and has led to creation of awareness in the areas. But as Rajaraman sir was just pointing out in his presentation, the focus has to be on infrastructure, on awareness, ability, as well as incentive. And it is along those lines that METI is planning to bring in a revised Digidhan mission, or the revised strategy of the Digidhan mission for bringing everyone in the fold of financial inclusion. We all know that although literacy levels of NER are relatively higher vis-a-vis the rest of the country, there are still requirements for digital and financial intervention to improve the literacy, the digital and financial literacy to particularly in the region, and with a special focus on women entrepreneurs. And I wouldn't miss this opportunity to thank Rajaraman sir and Mr. Chinoy as well for emphasizing the role of putting women in the driver's seat. And Kizom, you there and me here, probably we can make a lot of difference. And so in the past also, the digital financial inclusion awareness or the access programs that have been organized by METI on use of digital payment modes and for supporting merchant onboarding for acceptance of the digital payments, they have led significant fruits. Digi Shala was launched, where free Doordarshan DTH educational channel was made available in Hindi, English, and regional languages. As our future vision, we realize that the present digital revolution and the proliferation of connectivity both have created large amount of user-generated data. This is coupled with various government initiatives, including Aadhaar, Jandan, Beam UPI, DigiLocker, eSign, Umang, and several others. So there is a scope of effectively leveraging all these to provide an integrated and convenient platform where the citizens, the merchants may apply for various financial services and payment products in a seamless manner. So the government is endeavoring to explore to develop a national public digital platform for financial services using latest technologies like AI, machine learning, open APIs, and various other governance services that are digitally provided to the citizens to create an integrated and interoperable platform around the core principles of ease of use, convergence, social inclusivity, transparency, security, and data privacy. By growing our capacity in digital technologies and by applying them across sectors, including the payments sector, India is moving along the evolutionary path of a digital economy, wherein we will drive sustainable growth through use of digital technology and continuous innovation. On our pathway to this growth and expansion, we have to work as Team India. And it is this Team India approach which will generate concerted efforts that lead India to march towards $1 trillion digital economy by 2025 by leveraging the emerging technologies and its strength in those sectors. We will strive to achieve sustainable alliances with the ground level forces in the Northeast region to accelerate the digital payment ecosystem and its growth. This will be in terms of bank branches, the local players, the fintechs, existing government bodies, amongst others. Our aim is to ensure the unparalleled growth in NER, the entire Himalayan region, and the aspirational districts, and any other segment of our society and any other geographical part of our country that is not yet in the financial inclusion mainfold. Going forward, our ministry is planning to do a complete revamp of the strategies that are contemporarily relevant. This will bring in a renewed focus on enhancement of digital payment acceptance infrastructure in Jammu and Kashmir, Ladakh, Northeast, rural, and other untapped areas. We believe that there is a requirement to integrate the supply chains of various sectors through the digital payment mode. And that is what we are striving to do in the upcoming phase of the Digidhan mission. Targeted interventions or models will be designed to tie up cashless payments with the livelihoods of the otherwise digitally excluded population segments. For example, the farmers, the self-help group members, ASHA workers, street vendors. Focused strategies will be brought out to plan and to support inclusion of these critical sectors of our economy into the main fold. Cybersecurity, yes, is a paramount important factor for promotion of the digital payment in the country. And all stakeholders in the digital payment ecosystem are committed to strengthening the cybersecurity in digital payments to enhance the level of customer trust in the system. We're also putting emphasis towards, and we are contemplating on devising a focused strategy towards internationalization of our domestic payment products like the RuPay card and the UPI, showcasing them to the world as successful products that can be emulated with adaptation. Above all, the aim is to create an environment of collaborative working and to bring in digital and financial inclusion to each and every citizen of the country. So our endeavor will be to ensure that we have the inclusion of unbanked or the marginalized segments of our population who are currently outside the fold of formal banking and thus the financial system. And we'll adopt a focused approach towards these areas. We also intend to proliferate the National Common Mobility Card for all types of retail payments, moving ahead on the lines of one nation, one card. And this will enable a single interoperable digital payment mode in all the metros and bus services, along with the retail, to fulfill the vision of one nation, one card. Aggressive promotional campaigns of bill payments system, BBPS, will also be carried out. The National Electronic Toll Collection, the FASTag, it's been a successful program under the Digital India Initiative, and that will be promoted further. So we do recognize the prowess of technology and the role of startups in it. So use of regulatory sandbox for testing of new products or services, including offline payments in a controlled and test-regulated environment, that is being ensured so that the startups and companies looking to innovate can be facilitated and use of their innovations can help us in achieving our targets. Another important feature, which is the announcement of the National Language Translation Mission in the budget speech this year by the Honorable Finance Minister, that's really a boosting and enabling factor significantly. So we will leverage the National Language Translation Mission to provide the citizen-centric services, including digital payments, in localized languages to the citizens. Support capacity building programs aimed at training women merchants in order to enable them to transact digitally and to accept digital payments. Rigorous drives will be undertaken to onboard micro merchants and for consolidation of the self-help groups in various sectors as they operate today. As the emerging technologies bringing disruption in every sector, it will be ensured that adoption of these emerging technologies in the payment sector is accelerated further. So I take this opportunity to render my call for action to everyone present over here today, including the industry, the academia, the startups, the state governments, and departments and ministries of the central government to work together, collaborate as Team India to realize the Atmanirbhar vision of our own country and to bring in the financial inclusion of the Himalayan region, the Northeastern region, and the aspirational districts, and every citizen who's not yet included into it. Thank you. Thank you, Kezam, once again for this opportunity.
Simiji, thank you so much for these excellent commitments and for setting out the broader vision for Digital India through a Digital India team. So thank you very much. With this, may I request our esteemed guest speaker, Rima Ben, and her guest today to please share with us your experience as community mobilizers working with women merchants and the lessons that the industry can draw from your vast experience in some of these focus regions of today's summit. Over to you, Rima Ben.
Thank you so much. Thank you very much. And it's a real honor and privilege to be here, respected Secretary Mr. Rajaraman, Dilip Shinoy ji, Simi ji, Kezom ji, you and Prerna Ben for bringing the voices of the women, whom we are all trying to really focus on and make the whole process of Atmanirbhar India inclusive as well. I would like to start here by bringing the message on behalf of the 2 million women workers that we organize at SEVA from across the 18 states of India, and predominantly working in the states of Assam, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Nagaland, Jammu and Kashmir, Leh, Ladakh, and Uttarakhand as well. And I think the future of work and the future of workers, everybody was hoping that digital economy is yet to come, maybe in another 5 years through the fourth industrial revolution. But I think the pandemic has really fast tracked the whole process, and the digital economy has now become the real economy. And I therefore feel that it is a very important way of what we are talking today of, merchants, women merchants, and how that could also accelerate the process of inclusion. uh, Let me start by saying a few examples of how this whole process of women merchants using the digital payment system works. We have over 30,000 self help groups across the SEVA members. And the real challenge was for us was that how do you have the real time data and real time transactions recorded? And we were struggling with that because we did not want that a self help group leader has to travel, hundreds of kilometers to reach the bank branch to deposit the savings of the self help group members that she has collected. And, the poor women have really saved, worked hard to save that. And as a result, we designed a mobile application some 5 years ago. We call it as the mobile budget application, so which is, your mobile savings application. And then the real struggle was how do you integrate mobile payment with this? So therefore, we started piloting M-Pesa, we started piloting the Bheem app, and with the pandemic, I think everything has been fast tracked. So now with M-Pesa, with Bheem app, we have Paytm, we have Google Pay, and I think the women today we have close to 15,000 merchants who are, self-help group leaders, but who are saleswomen who are selling, small ration kits in the villages, selling craft produce in the villages. They are procuring things from the small farmers, from the micro entrepreneurs, and they are easily using the mobile payment applications. And I think the real outcome is that it has saved the time of these women merchants. Otherwise, she had to travel long distances. It has saved cost because this is transferred to the ledger, then it goes to the bank, and so all that effort has also been reduced. I think the most important aspect is that it has led to the real empowerment of women as well, because in her family, in her society, in her community, she's now able to have a smart gadget with which she's not only able to handle sales, but she's also able to handle payments. So she's able to therefore have additional income by helping with payments of electricity bills, payment of school fees, payments of college fees, making payments for their as health entrepreneurs, helping in making payments for the medicine, for the telemedicine systems, bringing to the doorstep. So these are some of the important aspects which I would really say. And I think looking forward, I would like to suggest three things. And one is that, the women merchants or women self help group leaders, or for that, women entrepreneurs, have to now learn to deal with the platform economy, which is the new public space. And how do we build capacities of these women entrepreneurs women merchants to leverage and deal with this new platform economy or the new public space. The second important area where one has to work is data will be an empowering tool for the women merchants. So they need a lot of training and capacity building in learning the importance of data. What is the relevant data for them? How do they use that data? And I was listening to Simiji when she was talking about, AI and machine learning. And I think, how do we make AI bottom up? And India can take lead in that process. That currently what's available in the world is a top down AI and machine learning technology. But if we really want to be an Atmanirbhar Bharat, if we really want inclusion to happen, if we really want women's empowerment to happen through these kind of technologies, we need to have a huge investment in training and capacity building of these women merchants into how do they understand data, how do they master data analytics, and so that this becomes a bottom up approach. Last but not the least, Seva would be very happy to partner with the Government of India, with FICCI and with Hezomji, your efforts in states like Jammu and Kashmir, Leh Ladakh, Assam and Meghalaya, which are our focus states as well, and in the and in the aspirational districts as well. I will now invite our grassroots leader, who's also a merchant from Assam, to share some of her experiences. She's Mausami Ben from Sonitpur district in Assam, which is a very far-flung, almost about 6 to 7 hours drive from Guwahati to Sonitpur, and how she is bringing, how she works as a digital merchant and is trying to bring financial services to the doorstep of the women. Over to you, Mausami Ben.
सबसे पहले मैं आप सभी को और सेवा को अभिनंदन हमारे ज्ञान विज्ञान केंद्र के तरफ से। मैं मौसमी बेन भट्ट आसाम से, सेवा आसाम से हूँ। मैं हम लोग सेवा के साथ 2012 से ज्ञान विज्ञान केंद्र से जुड़े हुए हैं, लेकिन मैं 2017 से जुड़ी हूँ। 2013 से मैं जुड़ी हुई हूँ। हम लोगों की मेंबरशिप है अभी 2729 मेंबरशिप है, और हम लोगों का 30 गांव के साथ, हमारे बहनों के साथ हम जुड़े हुए हैं। सेवा के साथ जब से हम जुड़े हुए हैं, तब से हम लोग कई सारे ट्रेनिंग सेवा के तरफ से हमें मिली है, जैसे कि फूड प्रोसेसिंग ट्रेनिंग, टेलरिंग ट्रेनिंग, गारमेंट ट्रेनिंग, लीडरशिप ट्रेनिंग, अगरबत्ती, कैंडल। उसी तरह से हम कई सारे सेवा की तरफ से हमें ट्रेनिंग मिला है हमारे बहनों को। अलग अलग ट्रेनिंग जो हमें मिला है, और सेवा हमारे बहनों के लिए बहुत ही मेहनत की है। और DFI ट्रेनिंग हमें सेवा के तरफ से मिली है, और सेवा के तरफ से मिली है, और इस ट्रेनिंग में हमारे 15 बहनें जुड़े हैं। ट्रेनिंग 15 बहनें इस डिजिटल फाइनेंशियल इंक्लूजन ट्रेनिंग के साथ 15 बहनें ट्रेनिंग लिया है, और हमारे बहनें अभी ट्रेनिंग दे रही है। ट्रेनिंग क्योंकि ये ट्रेनिंग लेना हमारे बहनों के लिए बहुत जरूरी है। आज के जेनरेशन के हिसाब से चलने के लिए मोबाइल का ट्रेनिंग सीखना, ट्रेनिंग लेना काफ़ी ज़रूरी है और लाभदायक भी है, क्योंकि हर काम अब इंटरनेट के द्वारा ही काम होता है। और इस डिजिटल ट्रेनिंग में हमें वो हर सारी एप्लीकेशन सिखाया गया है जो हम आत्मनिर्भर होकर हम अपना काम खुद कर सकते हैं। जैसे कि हम अपना फोन का बिल खुद भर सके, बच्चे का फीस भर सके, टेलीफोन बिल भर सके और टीवी का रिचार्ज खुद भर सके और बिजली का बिल खुद भर सके और मार्केटिंग कर सके। उस तरह से हमें वो हर एप्लीकेशन सिखाया गया है। ट्रेनिंग के द्वारा हम लोगों को भी कई सारे परेशानी हुई है कि हमारे पास स्मार्टफोन नहीं है और भी कई अलग अलग परेशानी है, जैसे कि नेटवर्क का प्रॉब्लम होता है, लाइट का प्रॉब्लम होता है। इस तरह के कई सारे प्रॉब्लम्स हमारे बहनों को हुआ है। इस ट्रेनिंग के दौरान हम लोगों ने 3 साल में ये 48,600 बहनों को DFI ट्रेनिंग देने का सोचा है। हर महीने 1350 के हिसाब से साल में 48,600 3 साल में 48,600 बहनों को सिखाने का टारगेट है। 30 गांव में ट्रेनिंग
नहीं, पूरा गौपुर एरिया में
ट्रेनिंग देने के लिए हम लोगों ने टारगेट दिया। इस गांव
हैं। थैंक यू वेरी मच मौसमी बहन, आप बहुत ही अच्छा बोल रहे हैं एंड वी आर वेरी ग्रेटफुल कि रीमा बहन आपको आज यहाँ लाए हैं हमसे बात करने के लिए। और जो सब काम आप और दूसरे महिला कर रहे हैं वो बहुत ही ज़रूरी काम है आत्मनिर्भर भारत के लिए। सो आपका बहुत बहुत शुक्रिया मौसमी बहन कि आप यहाँ आए और हमारे साथ बात किया। With this, Rima Ben, may I thank you so much for adding in this very important perspective of civil society, of women-led networks, and the wealth of knowledge that Seva and other community groups will have as we build an inclusive digital India. So thank you for these commitments, Rima Ben.
Thank you so
Maushmi
much.
Ben, thank you so much. बहुत धन्यवाद मौशी बहन आप आए। And with this, maybe move to the next segment of today's summit. We have next great. Firstly, we'll start with a very short overview of some of the great work that the Department of Industry and Internal Trade, DPIIT, has been doing, along with having an esteemed guest, Chief Secretary from Andhra Pradesh, from the Department of Industry and Internal Trade. Abhishek, may I request you to start, and then I will introduce our esteemed guest.
Sure. Thank you so much, Kizom. The Ministry of Commerce and Industry has been doing some pioneering work in terms of getting merchants to move towards e-commerce platforms, and that becomes an enabler for them to then start accepting payments digitally. In this connection, the ministry has pioneered the government e-marketplace, which is a B2G platform. This platform already has more than 3.3 lakh sellers, out of which close to 72,000 are actually micro and small enterprises. And of the 46,000 crore worth of sales that has been executed on this platform, almost 52% has come from these micro and small SMEs, which is a wonderful sort of an enabler in terms of not only giving them access to markets, but also preparing them to accept payments digitally. On similar lines, the ministry has been working with the Confederation of All India Traders to develop a Bharat e-market, which again has close to 50,000 SMEs already on board. And this will again help these SMEs to sell online and then accept payments digitally. If we sort of understand how the government has also been looking at this space in terms of e-commerce, if you move on the next slide, what you will notice is there are two essential mechanisms or modes that the government has been supporting through the private sector's help, and that is with respect to onboarding these micro and small enterprises and micro merchants through either an assisted e-commerce model or through social commerce initiatives. So under assisted e-commerce, we have initiatives like Store King, who help people to provide that physical touch point for testing out e-commerce transactions initially, and we already have a huge sort of sales volume that is happening through this model. And then on the social commerce side, wherein we see a large presence of women who are using tools like WhatsApp and Instagram to make digital sales and then accept payments digitally. What we have also seen is that the government has been working, the various state governments have been working with the e-commerce players in their respective states in order to onboard more and more merchants to digital platforms. For instance, we've seen examples of the government of Karnataka working with Amazon. Similarly, we've seen the government of Nagaland has also been partnering with Amazon in order to provide training and skill development for women entrepreneurs in helping them understand the nuances of selling online. Similarly, the government of Kerala has been working with the likes of private sector e-commerce players on product listing and how do you train women to come online. In this context, we also have Mr. Karikal Valaven, who's the Special Chief Secretary from the state of Andhra Pradesh, who would probably like to share more about how his state has been supporting e-commerce and in process digital payments for merchants within the state of Andhra Pradesh. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. I am Sundar, representing Sri Karikal Valavan sir, who is otherwise busy with some meeting. So therefore, I've been asked to depute, and thank you all for giving us this opportunity. I am Sundar, Special Secretary, Information Technology, Electronics and Communication Department, Government of Andhra Pradesh. Before telling you all about our journey and what we did, I should also highlight the process with which we started with all this digitization of payments. Way back in 2004-05, Andhra Pradesh was one of the first states to undertake digitization of currency, and this was done through inserting a smart card in the POS machines. And a study by MIT empirically revealed that the leakage is reduced from 30% to 18%. This was a story back in 2006, and for a decade, nothing happened. Then 2016, demonetization happened, and again, there was a huge kick towards digitization of payments. And then all citizens touch points like citizen services centers, liquor outlets, kirana stores, we started digitization. And over a period of 2 to 3 years, we also started a less cash Visakhapatnam project, confined only to Visakhapatnam. And through this journey, we realized that monetary currency still was king, still ruled. Okay, that was a lesson which we learned, and we changed our strategy to enlarge our footprint, to also bring in the processes in the industries front. So what did we do? We started with a one portal. We started with making all the transactions online, all the payments, all the disbursement of incentives and touch points with all the businesses we reduced. And at the end of 2019, we were ranked as #1 in the ease of doing business. Not only that, we made several strides as you can see in the slide here, we were the first state to comply with the business reforms, action plan reforms. We were the first in the business reforms action plan under ease of doing business. And what were the results of all these digitalization incentives? 5,900 plus units registered, 12,870 applications received through the soft route, 7,800 virtual inspections, SLA compliance shooting 99%. And since April 2019, 23 different kinds of approvals by various departments were digitized and 91 industry services were offered online. Now this slide talks about what we did to the industry vis-a-vis what I started with, like digitization of the citizens. We continued our journey with digitizing the citizens' touchpoints. As you can see, we started disbursements of all the payments, all the incentives to aged citizens, to farmers, to digital payments, 900 plus crores of incentives for 11,200 plus medium and micro small industries. So that was not the end of our journey. We had a total shift, total relook at how we delivered citizen services. We had around 6,000 citizen service centers where digital services were delivered, but these were not sufficient to cater to the citizens in the last mile. The reason being, an average citizen had to trek or walk or travel an average of 8 to 9 kilometers to access the nearest citizen services digital center. So in August 2020, we launched the Gram and Ward Secretariat in 15,000 locations. That is, our 6,000 odd touchpoints with citizens became threefold, and we reached almost every panchayat through the ward and the Gram Village Secretariat system. Here we have a secretariat that is a brick and mortar building with all the 7 key department functionaries sitting and waiting to deliver services in the e-mode. You have the municipal and the municipal representative, the health representative, the revenue and the land representative, and finally the sewage cleaning representative. All these people are extremely important for delivering their services, not only at the ground level, but also to receive grievances and to receive requests from the citizens. So all this was done in the e-mode, and we had 15,000 brick and mortar buildings with as many village volunteers running in every, they themselves travel to the rural household, take the oral request or the oral service request from the citizen, enter it digitally, take a day or two to process and deliver. If it is a payment of electricity, they completely digitize the payment and deliver the certificate right at the doorstep of the household. So this is how 4 lakh volunteers and Grama Sachivalayam assistants were appointed, and these people were selected through a rigorous test so that their moral and technical abilities were good, so that they are able to deliver these services in a seamless manner. In the next step, we also targeted women self-help groups, and they were provided with Android free smartphones and it had enough internet bandwidth. It had free SMS facilities so that they could transact easily and make our services reach the citizens at the rural places without any problem. Of course, by this we are claiming, though we have not conducted any studies, that we have bridged the digital divide to a large extent. And being a government functionary, we have another important responsibility. What all did this digitization? What is this? What exactly are we trying to do? A paper currency, after it changes 17 times and over a period of 4 years, research suggests that it becomes soiled and mutilated. It is of no use. But a digital payment, it keeps on repeating 100x, 1000x times without any problem of mutilation or destruction of the note. But in the process, there are other stakeholders like the gateway partners, the banking partners who cash in on this transaction, because every transaction, these private firms, they benefit. So our view was not only to serve the citizen so that their life is easy. At the same time, we also have to ensure that this kind of a supernormal profits do not reach the private sector players in the garb of financial inclusivity. So that is a reason why we took recourse to the National Payment Corporation for as our partner, though the journey has been bumpy, though the journey was a bit of a hiccup. And as you can see the timeline, nearly 16 years, and we are still nowhere near full digitization. And in the last slide, I also want to highlight how we took a project called the Vizag Digital Dhan Sankalp. The objective of this 2017-2018 plan was to make Vishakhapatnam the first less cash city. And for this, we logically got hold of a design consultant and we went about highlighting which were the major citizen touch points: property and water tax, bus services, isolation, tourist locations, and finally electricity. Of course, we also touched Me-Seva centers, which are citizen service deliveries, but then making them all cashless cost us not only a lot, but we only could cover around 35 to 40%, or we could only capture 35 to 40% of the target we intended to do. So the lesson is we have a long journey to go, and Gram Sachivalayam took out this city focus or town focus or single town focus and it spread the aim of digitalization objective to the entire state. With this, I would also like to reiterate what were our goals. One, of course, was to achieve the sustainable development goals. The second, from the IT perspective, it was to improve our rankings in the International Telecommunication Union, where India sadly lacks at 120 plus in a committee of 165 nations. Perhaps with all these initiatives, we would breach the 3-figure mark and land somewhere in the 50 to 60 rank in the next 2 to 3 years. And we would like AP to be a torchbearer in this journey. Now, with this, I would like to conclude and thank you all for giving us this opportunity to share our vision with you.
Thank you very much, Sundarji. Indeed, the road is bumpy, as you rightly pointed out, and great lessons from Andhra Pradesh that we can all benefit from, including other states as well as the industry leaders that are present today. So we appreciate you taking the time and sharing these important insights, that it's not going to be a straightforward journey, that we will need to have lots of trial and errors to move forward. So thank you very much, Sundarji. With this, our next speaker is Mr. Dilip Asbe from NPCI. And thank you so much for your patience, and the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you, Kizom and the other dignitaries. This is a great opportunity to talk about the digital payments and its applicability back to Northeast. And so, if I may request to go ahead on the slides, please. Yeah. So at NPCI side, we have been constantly working on to reduce the cost of the digital payment acceptance. It has been a key objective in our mind. And if you look at the UPI QR code and Bharat QR code, these are the two QR codes what we promote back in the market, and we have now approximately large number of QR codes which has been implemented, which are in the range of 20 to 25 million total QR codes implemented in the country. What it means is it provides almost like a near zero cost digital acceptance service, payment acceptance services back for anybody. When we looked at the digital POS for the physical card acceptance has been was getting very expensive. About 10,000 rupees plus what we require. Then we have recently launched now mobile POS as well. So even if somebody coming back with a card, the mobile POS, which is any smartphone which can be converted, which has an NFC level acceptance, which is nowadays any basic smartphone has that, can be converted back to the what you call to the digital POS payment acceptance device. And obviously, we see about 30 to 40% year-on-year increment growth in terms of digital acceptance touch points in India. Obviously, Now recently we have started some more initiatives in terms of getting the QR code, having the GST component and those kind of things. So a drive towards the dynamic QR code, which is able to compute the GST and other tax related components, which can be further utilized by the government to give the GST, the digital payment cashback incentives and those kind of things. Can you go to the next slide, please? Obviously, we keep on working on the various initiatives, which includes the Aadhaar enabled payment system, which includes the Bhim UPI payment services. We worked very closely with the central government to work on PM Swanidhi scheme to create to enable the merchant payments and the credit for them through this scheme. Approximately about 21 million cards, RuPay cards, have been issued back in the Northeast area, and obviously the electronic tool collection what we have implemented recently in the country, and that kind of helps for the government to build infrastructure with the seamless digital payment acceptance. Next slide, please. We have over 2,000 schemes direct benefit transfer now, which is operational. We have about 1,000 plus kind of banks receiving the government DBT in the near real time mode, and many state government schemes in the Northeast are also onboarded onto our DBT platform. The Bharat Bill Pay system, again, many billers from Northeast has been already onboarded back, and we continue to do the trainings and awareness as far as the digital payment is concerned. Can you go to the next slide, please? And we are fully committed to grow the digital payments, and I think the digital payment drives the economy, and it increases the speed of money, and the merchants are able to use once they get the money faster, they are able to pay faster, they are able to get the credit on those transactions. So various advantages of digital payments. RBI has recently started the PIDF, which is the Payment Infrastructure Development Fund, and predominantly the Northeast. It is in the rural locations and the Northeast and JNK driven fund. We believe that approximately this fund will create 10 million acceptance touch points in the next 3 years time, and predominantly significant amount of this will happen in the Northeast and JNK. We are in the process of implementing the real-time dispute resolution, right? So customers having a problem due to technology failures or the low connectivity, as many of the speakers were talking about. We are also going live as soon as next week. This has been a mandate by RBI that we must provide this online dispute resolution, and we are going live, which will kind of further develop the acceptance fund, and obviously continue to work on getting more person-to-merchant transactions overall. We continue to work with many state governments as well now, and Abhishek and Special Secretary IT spoke about Andhra Pradesh. We have worked with Andhra Pradesh to get their all collectors points enabled with the UPI QR code, so directly P2G payments can happen completely electronically and seamless manner. So obviously, it's a journey, and India is under penetrated as far as the digital payment is concerned. We saw some of the numbers that Northeast penetration is appearing low, obviously, but when we look at the trend is very, very encouraging, and I strongly believe that next 2 to 3 years time we will see the digital payment penetration in Northeast will be as equal to any other state in the country, with the various efforts which has been taken by the government of India and the RBI. So thank you, Kizom, for having me here, and I'm available for any questions later on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Asbe, for these commitments to action, especially the near real-time dispute resolution to improve the customer support for UPI, which is becoming the go-to solution for merchants, especially in these regions and in the rural areas. So thank you so much, Mr. Asbe, for your commitment from NPCI and for working very closely with all the industry partners present here today. With this, may I request Principal Secretary Jayesh Ji from the state government of Telangana to please kindly make your presentation, after which we have the State Bank of India. Thank you.
There you go. ప్రతి ఒక్కరు ఏదైనా సామానం కొనుగోలు చేయాలంటే ఖచ్చితంగా ఇక్కడ నుంచి మండల కేంద్రానికి వెళ్ళాలి. ఇక్కడ నుంచి దాదాపు 8 నుంచి 10 కిలోమీటర్ దూరానికి వెళ్ళాలి. మరి పని ఇప్పుడు ఈ వ్యవసాయంలో పని ఉండేది అందరూ కలిసి అందరూ ప్రతి ఒక్కరు వ్యవసాయంలో పని చేసేవాళ్ళు. వ్యవసాయం విడిసబెట్టి మనం ఈ చోటకు వెళ్ళవలసింది డబ్బుల కోసం. బ్యాంకులో పోవాలా, బ్యాంకులో పోయి డబ్బులు డ్రా చేసుకోవాలా, అక్కడ పోయి దుకాణంలో పోవాలా, సామాను కొనుగోలు చేయాలా. మొత్తం మన ఈ వ్యవసాయం పని పోగొట్టుకోవడం పరిస్థితి ఉండేది.
ఫస్ట్ ఏం చేసామంటే మేము గ్రామాల్లోకి వెళ్ళి ఎన్ని మొబైల్ ఫోన్స్ ఉన్నాయి, ఎందరి మందికి అకౌంట్స్ ఉన్నాయి, ఎందరి మందికి ఏటీఎం కార్డ్స్ ఉన్నాయని సర్వే చేయడం జరిగింది సిఎస్సి ద్వారా. ఆ తర్వాత వచ్చేసి మాతో పాటు ఒక ఇద్దరిని తీసుకోవడం జరిగింది, డిజిటల్ అక్కయ్య అని, డిజిటల్ అన్నయ్య అని. ఈ గ్రామంలో ఉన్న ఎడ్యుకేటెడ్ డిగ్రీ చదివిన పిల్లల్ని తీసుకోవడం జరిగింది. వాళ్ళని కూడా మాకు హెల్ప్గా చేయడం జరిగింది. అయితే ఇక్కడ వచ్చేసి మేము 6 రోజులు ఈ ఆన్లైన్ ఏవైతే వాలెట్స్ ఉన్నాయో ఆ వాలెట్ని మొబైల్ ఫోన్లలో ఎలా డౌన్లోడ్ చేసుకోవాలా, అది కాకుండా మరి ఏటీఎం కార్డు రూపే కార్డు తోటి స్వైప్ మిషన్లో పెట్టేసి డబ్బులు ఎలా డ్రా చేసుకోవాలా, మనం వస్తువులు ఎలా కొనుక్కోవాలా అనేసి ఇక్కడ ఉన్న గ్రామాల్లో ఉన్న వ్యాపారస్తులకు కూడా వివరించి చెప్పడం జరిగింది.
మనకి ఇప్పుడు 2000 నోట్లు చిల్లర ఇప్పుడు మనకు దొరకడం చాలా కష్టం అవుతుంది. కానీ ఇప్పుడు దీన్ని ఉపయోగించుకోవడం వలన ఏటీఎంల దగ్గరికి వెళ్ళే అవసరం లేదు. మీకు ఒకవేళ షాపింగ్ చేయాల్సి వస్తే దీని ద్వారానే మనం షాపింగ్ కూడా చేయవచ్చు.
టైలరింగ్ అయితేనేమి, కిరాణా దుకాణం అయితేనేమి, మళ్ళా కార్పెంటర్ అయితేనేమి, తరకారీ అమ్మేటోళ్ళం అయితేనేమి, ఆటోలు అయితేనేమి, అందరికీ దీనికి 2 months బ్యాకే అందరికీ అవగాహన కల్పించడం జరిగింది. డిజిటల్ పేమెంట్ చెల్లింపు స్టార్ట్ అయిన తర్వాత గ్రామంలో ఎక్కడ డబ్బు లేకుండా అందరూ ఇక అదే దాని ద్వారా పేమెంట్ అంటే మొబైల్ ఫోన్ అయితేనేమి, లేదా డెబిట్ కార్డ్ అయితేనేమి, లేదా మన రూపే కార్డ్ అయితేనేమి, దాని ద్వారానే ప్రతి ఒక్కరు పేమెంట్ చేయడం జరుగుతున్నది.
పూర్తిగా నగదు రహిత లావాదేవీల గ్రామంగా ముకరకే గ్రామాన్ని చేయడం జరిగింది సిఎస్సి ద్వారా.
పక్క గ్రామం వాళ్ళు చూసి ఆశ్చర్యపోతున్నారు. అరే మామూలుగా మీరు ఏం డబ్బు లేకుండా ఏం లేకుండా ఎట్లా బియ్యం తీసుకుపోతున్నారు అంటే, ఇక మాకు డబ్బు అవసరం లేదు, మా దగ్గర మొబైల్ ఉంటే చాలు.
Thank you. Thank you very much. So this video in some ways explains everything that I wanted to present. This, though there are some slides, but I'll be only marginally referring to them because nothing can be more powerful than watching things before your eyes. Now, let's go to the next one, please. Basically, this whole process of motivating the community started at the time of demonetization. As all of us are aware, demonetization gave a very big push in our country to look at digital financial transactions as an alternative. And that at that point in time, it also became imperative because cash was not physically available. So we, as you saw in this film as well, in this clip, in this video as well, there was we used some influencers in the village, some key opinion makers. In this particular case, the member of the village development committee, and also the operator of our Me Seva Center, the community service center or the Me Seva Center. So typically in most of the villages in Telangana, the VLEs are women, and that gives us a very good access in all the families because this particular women influencer can interact with remaining women members in the community, and obviously they in turn talk to their husbands and the other men in the family. So we are able to spread this quite a lot. And what you saw here in Mukra has been replicated in multiple villages across Telangana. So you use these influencers, explain to them what is the virtue of going digital, then start targeting at the merchants and don't leave anyone. So in this, you saw this is a small village. There are maybe, as it said, there are 5 shops, even 8 barbers, 8 auto rickshaw drivers and 1 barbers. Even they were brought under the fold. And I guess this video was not shot when a very important Telugu festival happens in the community. Actually, that is also something very remarkable. This village has become so determined about remaining cashless. Subsequently, as we all know, while the cash became easily available thereafter, after a few months or a couple of years, people started using cash also. But this village has been so steadfast that even in community festivals, see, typically we know that when there is a festival, we go to the temples and normally along with our prayers, we put some small offering, maybe 5 rupees or 10 rupees. So in this particular village, even in the village temple, the donations are made through this QR code, etc. So they have been so steadfast in their approach towards digital. Next slide, please. So anyway, the numbers, etc. are here. I don't want to go into the numbers. The village whose video has been shown, Mukra, that is incidentally the second cashless village. But the story is much more fascinating in terms of even the barber taking UPIs, all the auto rickshaw drivers taking UPIs. So we chose to make the video there. But there are so many other villages as well. And now we have moved to a bigger size town also. And as one of the bullet on this slide shows, there is a temple town close to Hyderabad called Yadadri, where a huge temple is located. That also has been converted with the help of the district administration and obviously all the merchants, etc., into a completely a cashless town. So the ability to scale up. See, many people, when I speak to them about this Mukra success story and show this video, they maybe tell that it is a small village, more homogeneous, and therefore it is easy to influence people. But as we saw, it is possible to do it in a bigger town also. And Yadadri has a population of close to 50,000 and much more number of merchants than compared to Mukra. And we have been able to achieve the same sense of adherence to digital payments. Next one, please. So we have seen all these things that even micro merchants accepting UPI payments is a very, very common thing. And this has been a part of the strategy that you start with the smallest person, smallest merchant. And obviously you have to do lots of hand holding. You have to show physically how the transactions happen. Their biggest concern is whether this money is getting into their accounts in real time and whether any amount is getting deducted. So we have to actually demonstrate that whatever is the size of the transaction, not even a rupee is lost, and therefore that assurance that there is no hera-fairy in this whole business, that conveying that is very, very important. Next one, please. And of course, some more pictures. We saw this in the video as well, when the whole village took a pledge to remain digital. Next one, please. But what I consider much more important in spreading digital payments. So those kind of campaigns continue. And as one of the earlier slides showed, there are many more villages here today. So we follow this saturation model, that enter into a village and cover everyone and ensure that over a long period of time, people adhere to this particular social norm. But what is much more satisfying is the ability of the state government to create its own payment gateway. So again, this was stoked during the time of demonetization, when it was realized that people are going to make digital payments, and when we scanned the horizon, we felt that there are payment instruments, but again, many of them have user fees and some kind of MDRs and so on. So it was felt that why not create a facility on behalf of the government, in which the government absorbs all these charges, etc. So for the past 4 years, we have been using in all our state government transactions, and this is a bi-directional wallet. So not only can the user pay bills and utilities and for all kinds of merchant payments, the state government can also load this card by, let us say, scholarship payments and so on and so forth. So one scalable and large use case has been the payment of ration purchases. Every month, as you know, millions of people buy ration from their ration shops. So there are about 11,000 FP shop dealers in the state, and all of them have got onboarded on the T-wallet system, and about 3.5 lakh transactions happen using T-wallet through these FP shops. So the entire FP shop payment happens through digital, and of course this is a process flow. Basically, it's a very secure process. So every rupee gets accounted for. The dealer's payments are recorded properly. The citizen knows how much money has been deducted from his account, and there is a two-factor authentication. So very secure and stable payment system. Next one, please. And of course, the intention is to motivate more and more and more people. So as many of you would know, under the Digital India campaign, there is a digital literacy component, which is called PMG Disha. Now, what we have done in Telangana is that digital financial literacy has now been clubbed with PM Disha. So in the in the lessons that you learn as a part of digital literacy, everyone is compulsorily taught about digital financial transactions as well. And the moment we realize that in a particular village, there is a critical mass which is willing now to try out digital payments, our team of volunteers go there and they try to saturate this entire village by talking to the consumers, and through them, the merchants and the village leaders. So that is the model that we follow, and it has been quite successful so far. The remaining slides, of course, in many villages, in close to 2,500 villages, we have Grameen stores, where also it is compulsory that every order has to be done only through digital payment. These stores do not accept any cash at all. Some examples, some pictures in the remaining slides to show how different use cases, and even the micro merchants, as one of the earlier slide talks about, street vendors in urban areas, food stalls in rural districts, they all take digital payments today. So our commitment is that we will make all the merchants of the state accept digital solutions by 2025, in the coming 4 years. And we will provide additional support to women merchants, work with them, guide them further on the safety and security and authenticity of the whole business, and collaborate with the ministry and private sector partners for ensuring that all that is taught is in the local language of Telugu. Also create a very good grievance resolution mechanism for the digital payment systems. So thank you very much for giving me this chance and listening to me and watching our video. Thank you very much.
Jayashi, thank you so much for these commitments. We have many states on the line who've been listening with keen interest, and one of the questions from, if I can just pull up the chat box, has been from Mr. Isaac of Mizoram about, you know, sort of how do you get started? And, you know, if the starting point is enabling people to have access to connectivity, smartphones, these are really expensive investments at the state level. You know, what are some key lessons that you would offer or practical solutions or steps that you would offer to other senior bureaucrats and government civil servants from states like Mizoram in the Northeast?
Yeah, thank you, Ms. Kezom. See, the starting point is discussion and debate. If you want this whole thing to take the form of a movement, then the word must spread before action starts on the ground. And as I said, women are the best medium or the best carriers of this discussion and debate, and that is the strategy we follow. As I said, all the village level entrepreneurs are women, and they have access to other self-help groups. So the social mobilization which these groups bring on, that is very vital for the success of this movement. Hardware comes much later, and I agree with you that not 100% people will have that hardware. So people find solutions amongst themselves. If there is a desire that we will be able to convert our village into a cashless village, the absence of hardware with some people who could be poor, or maybe they don't value the benefit that hardware provides, the device provides, that is there. But people, I have seen in many other villages, that people start sharing the devices. So I will buy the ration for you also, since you don't have the device, and you can maybe settle that payment to me later on, and so on and so forth. So at the merchant level, the transaction happens digitally. I mentioned to you that there are 2,500 Grameen stores where there is no other option but to pay digitally. So even if you carry cash to that store, the store won't accept physical money. So these norms obviously have to be evolved and internalized. So debate, discussion, clarifying doubts, getting people who are credible in the village to speak about it, the influencers that I spoke about. These are first steps, and sometimes these happen immediately. So it depends upon the dynamics village by village. Sometimes it takes months altogether for these discussions to fructify. Sometimes in just 2 sittings, people realize what exactly there is in it for them, and they kind of simply convert. So there is no formula as such, but eventually if you come up with good success stories. In that video also, the VDC president was telling that nearby villages now marvel at what this particular village, the village of Mukra, has achieved, and then they kind of show interest in learning. So word spreads. You just have to make a thorough effort in some pockets, and then people have their own social networks. They mingle with each other in common gatherings and so on and so forth. And then they talk about this initiative, they discuss about this initiative. You don't have to spend too much of effort in helping the spread of this movement, but the initial few success stories is where you need to focus your energies and attention.
Thank you, Jayesh. Basically, there's no magic formula. It's not a straightforward path, but only by working together with all these diverse key stakeholders is important. And the most important point that you mentioned, that most of these are women influencers, women merchants, and therefore in national level programs, we hope to see more women level targets as well. With this, thank you so much, Jayesh. And to our next presenter, we have the esteemed Mr. Ravindra Pandeji, Deputy Managing Director and Chief Digital Officer at the State Bank of India. Sir, thank you so much for your patience, and we welcome you to this dialogue and to share some very important work that SBI has been doing across the country, in particular in these focus regions. Over to you, sir.
Good afternoon. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. These are just what SBI is. And in fact, in all these areas, around 50% of our penetration into the rural and the semi-urban area. In the recently launched Digital Apnai campaign by the Government of India, we have achieved 300% of the target. We had around 28% market share in ATM. 13% market share in the POS terminal and 30% market share in the debit card transaction. And in UPI, we have a 26% market share. Can I move to the next slide? Yeah. See, actually, we identified in 2019 itself that, what would be the key enabler for digitizing the rural and the semi-urban area. So we have created a joint venture, first of all, in 2019 to give a focus and to facilitate expansion of the digital payment landscape in the hinterlands of the country, and particularly into the rural and the semi-urban areas. Now, the few key initiatives by the government PDF and the offline payment certainly is going to help us in our endeavor. There have been two major challenges in terms of last mile payment acceptance infrastructure creation. One is, how can I create a low cost acceptance infrastructure, and what value added services I can give to the merchant which acts as a hook. We do use influencer, we talk to the people. Now, in fact, these are the two new initiatives we have made. One, this is a mobile app. We call it as a merchant app. You only need one merchant app. It's a simple solution for all farmers, for all merchants to fully manage and operate their business efficiently from phone anytime, anywhere. So this mobile, you can download. Right now, it is available on the Android. You can download from the Play Store, and then you can accept, the merchant can accept a payment through a QR code, whether it's a UPI or a Bharat QR code. You can also accept payments through a debit card or a credit card, provided the smartphone is NFC enabled. And the more focus towards this, the small kirana merchant, the small shop merchant into the hinterland, how can we enable them digitally to accept the payment? Through this app, they know their transaction, they know the last 5 transactions and things like this. Going forward, we are also trying to tie up with few of the players, whereby I can provide a very cheap smartphone to the rural and the semi-urban area. Now, the second problem which we faced, in addition to providing an asset line acceptance instrument, how to onboard a merchant, how to take a merchant in our fold. It's a costly affair. So we have created a digital app known as Digimon. Now, this Digimon is an assistant model where we can capture, through the collaboration of the fintechs, we can validate the merchants also, and then their KYC is completed. And then my representative gets a one signed document with signature, and then he is digitally onboarded. We get this merchant app download on his mobile, so he's digitally enabled to accept all forms of payment. So this has created a lot of uptake in our endeavor to penetrate into the absolutely the bottom of the pyramid. So next, please. Now, this is, during the current financial year, we have a focus on the northeastern state and the J&K. We always feel that it is not only to create an acceptance infrastructure, it is always to ensure that it is being used. So our endeavor in any of the states is that we create acceptance infrastructure and how we can hook the people to use it. If you see in the northeastern state during the current financial year only, we have added on 131,000 new merchant touch points, and activation is 47%. Roughly half of those merchants are started using transaction. In J&K also, slightly difficult territory. In fact, activation is 62%. Now, these two activation levels indicates the fact that there is a need. One, there is an acceptance even into those areas, provided we are able to reach them, give them a suitable product. So I look these acceptance infrastructure, the activation your level toward that perspective. Now here also, whatever we say, cash, sometimes you need a cash. Through this both, our merchant app, we had a facility, we call it as a cash at POS. We can draw up to 2,000 rupees. You can use this app by using your RuPay debit card. You can use this app as an ATM, and a small ATM. As of now, the RBI your limit is up to 2,000, and 2,000 at that level, at that area, I think it's a sizable one-time transaction. And when the merchant gives this 2,000 rupees to the customer, we incentivize the merchants also by way of some money as a service provider. So this also, whatever cash into the system is there, we try to use it up. Your next, one more thing. In fact, we have also, particularly into the northeastern state and the J&K, we have also used our resources. We are continuously on board hiring new people through our JV into this area to educate and to learn. Yeah, go next, please. Now we have also tied up with one of the industry major. In October 2020, we launched to provide an instant paperless overdraft facility up to 50,000 to their small and micro retailers. I'm not talking of dealers and the distributor, small last mile shop, as well as financing facility. Distributors are there, but to the last retailers we provide. And along with this, we are also providing a digital payment option to the retailer. And now this integration is absolutely seamless, and it is a host-to-host integration. With this app, now he has a credit. The small the retailer farmer people, they have the credit also have. And they have also a digital acceptance touch point. So we have provided both, and we have used UPI solution for the instant cashless payment to their suppliers also. So they accept payment digitally from their customer, they pay to their supplier digitally. When they pay to their supplier digitally, we have used the UPI platform to do it. It is instant, and it is there is no charges involved. The next, please. Now this particularly for the women retailers, how we can onboard on a digital. We launch with the HUL known as HUL Satyama for financing their women retailers in the rural and semi-urban area. Under this scheme, end-to-end digitized sanction of loan, digital payment solution is provided to the women entrepreneurs to empower them and uplift their standards joining the industry major. So that is, we are trying to, industry major is also helping, and we are collaborating and cooperating with them to give it. So next, please, ma'am. Yeah. Now under the PM Swanidhi, I think NPCI, Mr. Asbi has already talked about this PM Swanidhi. We are very actively participating in PM Swanidhi, and already more than 1.5 lakhs Beam QR code has been distributed till January 21 under PM Swanidhi. So next, please. We always feel that it is not only a digital acceptance, whether you pay or you receive the money. We also need to onboard those people into a micro insurance activities also, both life or general. These are micro insurance activities has to begin. For this, our SBI Life Insurance Corporation, which is our subsidiary, they have got a mobile-based smart advisor. It's total integrated. So therefore, you get your policy instant. You can see that instant. If you want to print out, you can print. If you want to store, you can store into the PDF. Now the second important benefit of this also provides a revenue opportunity, an income generating opportunity to the people residing at the rural and the semi-urban area by becoming our micro agent. They just need a smartphone to collect the insurance payment. Now, these are the few key learnings we have observed from this, and because of them, we have taken those action. How we can make journeys simple and cost effective. And most important in the digital, what we feel is how can I create a digital awareness? We had long program, we call it Village Chopal. We go to the villages, show the people how to make a digital transaction. But one of the important component of getting people hooked into open loop system, because ultimately whatever we are rolling out it is an open loop system, bank agnostic and the network agnostic. So in this system, the security is most important. Security and education. We continuously run a security educational program for security. This is not any cyber attack. Basically, people globally give their credential. They give their OTP, they give their card numbers, how they can tell that no bank No bank in the country asks you. No system provider in the country asks you your OTP, your name, your card number. So these we constantly are giving. And third is SSN reach, which fortunately because of physical reach, continuously onboarding, and most important, creation of a joint venture has with SBI has given us this SSN reach. That's from my side. Thank you.
Ravindraji, thank you so much for sharing these key learnings. Really important to reflect on the massive work that SBI leads. You are absolutely right that digital payments must work each time to create that level of trust and confidence. And it's the simple things, that is going to make a huge difference in terms of the security education for the users and the small merchants in the focus regions. So thank you so much, Ravindraji, for also sharing about the partnership that you're leading on with Hindustan Unilever. Great to see already some great collaboration and lessons that will be available for the industry to also reflect on and, push forward with this important agenda. Thank you again. With this, may I now request our next speaker, from NABARD, Ms. Rosie Chering. Over to you, Madam, for your presentation.
Very good afternoon to all. I thank the organizers for giving NABARD and me an opportunity to speak on all the initiatives of NABARD in the financial inclusion space. NABARD has always been associated with all types of work related to financial inclusion, beginning from the SAG Bank linkage program, where we are the pioneers. We have done a lot of work in connecting the lady SAG members to the banks, and we have also done some work in introducing the Rupee KCC, then also introducing some of the regional rural banks and the cooperative banks into the CBS system. Besides that, also for PAX computerization. So there has been a lot of work that NABARD has been doing in the space of financial inclusion. The earlier slide, please. The earlier slide, please. Yes. If we talk about how our approach has been, we have been trying to generate a demand for the banking services and the banking products. And how do we do it? We do it through the various awareness programs that we support, the financial literacy programs and the financial education. And besides that, we also try to create some kind of an ecosystem or create the infrastructure for digital banking. And all that is given through financial support. Next, please. Next slide, please. The slide before that, please. Yes, so the support that has been given has been mostly to the banking sector, to all types of banks like the commercial banks and the payment banks and small finance banks, to the rural cooperative banks and the regional rural banks. So mostly the support is given through these banks, and the awareness programs and the literacy programs not only cover banking per se, but also banking related services for insurance as well as the social security schemes. Everything is covered under that. And we also try to create this digital banking and awareness about it. Then we have also roped in the last mile institutions like the PACs, the primary agricultural cooperative societies, so that they form a part of this banking and service delivery. And not only that, we also try to support all innovative technologies through these banks. Next slide, please. Next, please. The strategy that NABARD has adopted is we have tried to focus on around 314 special focus districts. And these special focus districts are the aspirational districts, the LWA districts, the hill states, and what we are talking about, the NERs and the states and the districts in Andaman and Nicobar Islands. So basically, it is those districts which are underserved or unserved in terms of financial inclusion. So the grant support or whatever the grant support that is given to in these areas, in these districts to the banks are to the extent of 90% of whatever the expenditure costs are. And in respect of other districts, the grant support is little lesser, but it depends on bank to bank. Next slide, please. So in the case of financial literacy programs, what we do is we support the banks for setting up literacy digital financial and digital literacy camps. Then also the camps and the literacy programs can also be conducted through their financial literacy centers, which are set up by the banks. Then we also support the setting up of demo vans, demonstration vans, which are basically vans with all the small financial banking services that are there. So in fact, just in the beginning of this conference, many people were talking about the pandemic and during the lockdown, how digital payments and how digital banking took off. So in the case of NABARD also, these demo vans were used. These demo vans were used, and the banks were able to, during the lockdown, the banks were able to deliver financial services and banking services to the remotest corner because through these mobile demo vans. Next slide, please. The kind of support that we give for banking technology, that these are various products that we support and we give to the banks. One is like we provide micro ATMs, and through these micro ATMs, so that the doorstep banking is available to the customers. Then we also support the banks in acquiring POS and MPOS machines, so that the cashless merchant transactions are possible. Then we have been supporting the onboarding to Bhim UPI of the banks, so that their customers can get exposed to real-time banking. Then we also support the cooperative banks for onboarding into the PFMS, that is the platform, so that DBT transfers of their beneficiaries of their clients is enabled. Then we also support the banks in roping the customers in making the BP, the Bharat Bill payment system available to the customers, so that the customers can, the rural customers can make their utility bill payments online. Then, as you know, sometimes for rupee activation or card activation in the hinterland, it is always a problem, because if it has to be done through physical methods, it's always a problem. So we support those banks which can introduce it through the green pin, that is online activation of cards. Then we also support the banks in building up a software for dual authentication at the BC points. Now this is helpful, especially in the case of SHG transactions, because SHG transactions, as you all are aware, there may be at least one particular account may be handled by at least more than one lady. So this dual authentication at these BC points does help a lot. Then we have this is a government of India program that is Bhim supporting the banks for onboarding into the Bhim Aadhaar, so that the digital this thing payments and all is possible. So all these are the various banking technology that is made available to the banks from NABARD. Then as you know, then there are various banks are required to confer to many to regulatory compliances, and the kind of infrastructure that is required is supported by NABARD. For example, to become the AUA or KUA membership, to avail that from the UIDAI, that is supported by NABARD to the banks. And also NABARD also supports the banks for onboarding into the CKYC, so that some kind of a KYC registry is possible to be maintained. Then, as you know, connectivity and power is always a problem in the hinterland. So NABARD has been supporting the banks in setting up the VSATs and mobile signal boosters, and the VSATs can also be powered by the solar power. So all this is supported through grant support by the banks by NABARD to the banks. Then the other support is by to the bank Sakhis. Bank Sakhis, as you know, are the SHG members who act as BCs of the banks. So we support them through training, and other capacity building. Then these so that the financial literacy programs to facilitate the financial literacy programs, these handheld projectors which are battery operated, these are made available to the banks. Then particularly in the Northeast region, wherever we have allowed the banks to set up these kiosks, where these outlets which can facilitate the BC operations in the remotest areas of the northeastern region. Next slide, please. So I would like to, before I conclude, I would just like to share with you a few of our success stories. Now, this is one success story which actually NABARD had done it on a pilot basis. It was in the form of a comprehensive financial inclusion program. So initially, the NABARD started it by conducting a study or a survey in 5 backward district sub-service areas of RRBs through RRBs in the 5 states like Assam, Tamil Nadu, Rajasthan, UP, and Uttarakhand. So these backward districts, a study was undertaken to see the outreach of the banking services and to see where are the gaps. So once these gaps were identified, then we tried to bring in those interventions to fill in these gaps. So the pictures that you see here are those interventions that were undertaken by NABARD, and then the result of these interventions was also recorded. So it was found that in certain places this e-Rath system, where the financial literacy awareness was built. So e-Rath was very effective in certain places. That Ratri Chaupal was very effective in certain areas. Just by through the SHG members, the awareness could be created. Then in certain areas, the demo vans were very useful, because demo vans were able to reach the unbanked areas. Then in some places, it was just the setting up of a small ATM. So these were the various interventions that proved to be very successful in filling up these banks, in filling up these gaps. Another success story that I would like to share with you is in Chhattisgarh, the Bastar district. The demo vans were set up, and these demo vans were sent into the LWE districts of Chhattisgarh, and there they were able to create a lot of awareness about banking and the banking services. Then the other intervention was during the COVID period. This was done in Himachal Pradesh, where in the districts of Mandi and Simor, the very remote areas where it was possible to conduct the financial and digital literacy camps. And here we were able to almost around 100 savings banks accounts could be started here, and more than 150 programs could be conducted. I think that is all from my side. Thank you very much.
Rosie ji, thank you so much. The work of NABARD is remarkable. And if we were to really take heed of some of the key asks that have come, especially from civil society organizations like SEVA, to build an inclusive Atmanirbhar, a digital India, it would require a lot of our private sector leaders at the FMCG level, at the payment banks level, to work very closely and learn from some of the very important, strong rural networks that NABARD has spent decades building to create that change that we want to see for responsible merchant digitization. Thank you so much, Rosie ji. Our next speaker is Mr. Satyendu Krishna. He's from the Hindustan Unilever team. Satyendu ji, over to you.
Thanks, Kizom. First of all, it's really a great pleasure to share my views, especially on the topic which kind of covers large population of India. and it's always a pleasure to really think about their livelihood and kind of betterment on that. I want to focus largely on the Kirana merchants because that's what I know about. And as an organization, work, the FMCG organization, we work deeply with the Kirana merchants, and hence I would want to focus on that. And in the next 4 to 5 slides, crisp slide, I just want to kind of conceptualize what I feel should be at the center of digitization and what should we do. But the first one, I think, if you really look at the FMCG scope, we're actually talking about close to around 1.2 crore or maybe around 12 million Kirana merchants in the country, as per the latest report, or maybe growing at rapid growth. And if you assume that each of these Kiranas would have the store owner and maybe 1 or 2 helpers, many of them might not have, you're actually talking about close to around 2 crore households. And hence, if you really put this in perspective, you're talking about almost around 8% of India's workforce. So if I'm really able to do something for the Kirana merchants, I'm able to influence 8% of India's workforce and almost around 11% of the GDP. So that's the scale of Kirana merchants in India. On the other hand, actually, if you look at it, the biggest problem is that most of these are essentially working in an unorganized setup. 90 to 95% of the transactions or the business that they do are essentially in cash, or very few of them on check. And digital payment, while it's been growing at rapid pace, we're still scratching the surface here. So the huge opportunity to drive this. But what is most important to discuss here is really, if the objective is to drive digitization there, I think unless we keep 2 things in the center, which is basically any solution, does this really give the retailer or a Kirana an opportunity to drive their sales growth or business growth? And does it give them opportunity to maximize their margins and profit? So on one axis, really the increase in this business, and on the other axis, increase in profitability. And any solution will have to really work keeping these 2 objectives in mind. If you now really think about what are the key barriers on digitization, I think that there could be two parts of the strategy, right? One could be a pull strategy or a push strategy. Now, in one of the strategy, essentially you digitize all the consumers, and hence they go to a store and want to pay only by digital means, forcing the retailer to come on board the digital payment, and hence really have the UPI app or other means of accepting the payments. And that's one way of doing it. The second approach to the whole thing could be to say that if I keep the Kirana in the center and really think about what can help him augment his income or his sales or his profitability, I think we will have to really think about what is in it for the retailers. And there are a lot of things, including insurance. We spoke about it. But I think in the core of it, according to me, the biggest unlock, especially for the small merchants, especially in the rural areas and in these districts of the Northeast region, or the districts which we call as aspirational districts, I think working capital is at the center. And unless we really solve this problem, because they need money and they don't really have money, and still while most of them have now got kind of connected through the Jan Dhan program, availability of working capital for them, unsecured loan, etc., is far from getting democratized as of now. So I think that's one big challenge. And if you could just go to the previous slide go to the previous slide. No, yeah, this one. So if you really look at it, there is a virtuous cycle. So what is happening is, to start with, many of them do not still have the digital interface. Shoppers pay in cash, and if they pay in cash, there is a whole lot of cash at the retailer's counter. So he wants to pay even his supplier, those where he goes and buys stuff from, whether it is FMCG distributors or wholesale. He actually has a lot of cash at the counter and therefore wants to go and make the payment in cash. When that happens, so distributors are therefore taking in cash. If that happens, the interaction with the bank is the least. If the interaction with the bank is least, the banks have very low what you call engagement with these people, and hence they don't have a process of underwriting or existing relationship on the basis of which they will extend the loan. If that is a problem, and then that leads to really the whole issues in terms of low business growth, low digital literacy, and then kind of the whole virtuous cycle. Now the question is, how do we bridge this gap? At HUL, we've kind of consciously worked, if you could go to the next slide, please. over the last few years, we've actually carved a program, as we call it, Connected Store program. And the Connected Stores program, there are 7 initiatives here, and aimed largely at how do I digitize the payment and how do I augment the income of the Kirana merchants, and especially the women entrepreneurs that we work with. So there are 4 key initiatives here. The first one is really the digitization of payment, which is essentially now we have 100% of our distributors ability to accept the payment through digital means. And that kind of unlocks big capability, and we worked with SBI and other organizations to really wire this up. And today, all the distributors can take the money, collect the money from the trade, from these merchants electronically. Now, this is not something which is like a forced thing for the distributor to do. Distributor is actually more than happy to do it, because when he does that, there is a lot of savings that he do. First of all, the money comes to his bank account immediately. He doesn't have to really think about collecting cash, going to the bank, depositing money, and then realizing it. Secondly, you're removing the threat of pilferage, someone running away with the money, cash handling charges, and all of those things are eliminated. So there is a value even for the distributor here. The second one that we've kind of unlocked, which is a big one here, is to really how do I provide accessible working capital to the small merchants. Now, distributors do provide in FMCG business, at least the large companies would know that distributors do provide credit to their big retailers. But when it comes to the small retailers, they don't want to take risk, etc. And which is where the need for working capital is quite high. And if we can do something where the working capital will be provided, and what we've done is, because we have huge understanding of how the Kiranas work, their transaction data, etc., that helps the financial institutions even do the process of underwriting, which otherwise they can't do because they don't have a strong banking relationship with these people. So ability to provide affordable loan, and it has to be a floating loan. It is not something that you give it one time. It has to be a rolling credit because they need it for their business. So that's something that we've unlocked, keeping these small merchants in the center. Third, we've kind of looked at medium-sized merchant, providing them point of solution, where on one hand, they are able to accept the payment from their shoppers through card payment or UPI means. But most importantly, it also helps them run their store operations, which is in terms of billing, customizing promotion for their shoppers, being able to communicate with their shoppers, and things like that. So that's third one. And the fourth one, I think most of us would know now that in HUL for the last 15, 20 years, we've been really proud of our program called Shakti, which kind of targets these women in the rural areas, small village specifically, and there we appoint women entrepreneurs who can really work as dealers for HUL products, and they kind of conduct the business, and it aids in the livelihood of these women. And most importantly, it is not just about money, but also the sense of empowerment that they have. Now, what we've done is, with the help of BTCA, and banks, looking at how do we fast track the pace of digitization amongst the Shakti entrepreneurs. And I think here, the most important thing is really how do you handhold them, because they're not tech savvy like some of the urban merchants. And at the core of it, actually, as an organization, we've really wired ourselves through a program called what we call WIMI, which is Winning in Many India. And the target here is really looking at what we call these aspirational districts, especially in the central regions of India and hills. And when we calculated, we cover close to around 40-45% of these aspirational districts through this WIMI India program, and especially the central part of the country. And that is our focus area, and all these programs are kind of work toward that. Some of the key learnings here, I think the first learning here is that whatever we might say, it's really growing at a rapid pace, but still the smartphone penetration is not that great in India. There's still a long way to go, especially in these smaller places. And looking at, therefore, solutions, either kind of thinking about how do we provide low-cost smartphone to people, or to really look at solutions away from smartphones, but without compromising on the value proposition that we have for the retailers. The second one is still a long way to go in giving UPI apps to these merchants. In urban, our penetration is very, very good now through various companies, PhonePe, Google Pay, all of them. They have done a splendid job, but I think there are, especially among the FMCG merchants, smaller ones, is still some time to go on this one. Third one, I think this whole job of hand-holding, huge hand-holding required. I don't think it's an easy job. But if you really keep the profit and their business in the center, training them also becomes easier. Some of the other things, I think, in FMCG trade, the kirana merchants, the small stores, they really work on a very low margin. FMCG business is not really a high margin business. It's a high volume business, which means the rotation is high. And therefore, any loan or anything solution that we come up with, which is a very high interest rate solution, cannot work there because they don't have that much earning in terms of the percentage margin. One heartening thing, at least in our experience, and we've seen from the experience in other countries as well, I think lower the size of the ticket, lower the merchants, lower the risk of default. And as we always feel that how do we underwrite? We don't have data points. It's risky to really provide loans, and our experience shows risk of default is actually the least there, and hence a big opportunity there, and really less fear in terms of that. Lastly, I think one of the other learnings is really any solution got to be seamless. It cannot be, comprising, lots of stages. You need to go to the bank to kind of open a bank account and things like that, validation of documents. I don't think any solution which is a multi-step process involving a lot of time can succeed in this trade. Especially when the retailers have to be at the storefront and they can't really go out, because they go out, they lose business for that day. Now, the last slide, I think I'm particularly very bullish in terms of the opportunity that I see in terms of digitization of merchant. And primarily, I think this confidence really comes from the fact that in India now we have shown the world, whether it is Jandan, we have large number of people now already connected with the bank. We have huge success story in terms of really looking at UPI and the work that we have done on Aadhaar. I think what I would propose as a solution is really first keep the kirana's profitability and in business in the center. And one of the big elements essentially comes is in terms of providing them working capital. Now, if you keep that in center, if there was a solution which was almost like coming up with a UPI or Aadhaar kind of solution, which is something which is seamless, that's the beauty of it, and that's why it's been successful. And that is something which has the ability to democratize. You're not coming up, the idea is not to really come up with solution for maybe a few lakhs of kind of people and targeted at, very, very niche segment. I think the solution which can be democratized is something that will work and will go a long way. And I think it is possible given the basic infrastructure that now we have in the country. Now, what could that solution be? I think a solution which could have technology at the forefront, eliminating the whole hardware and the software issue, the whole bit of smartphone versus feature phone that we spoke about, the seamlessness of the app, the solution which has a very easy and instant documentation process. You don't have to kind of, if it was bank agnostic, everybody has a bank account today, but not everybody has a bank account of the bank's liking. If I'm bank A, maybe that merchant has bank B's bank account. I should not be able to, should be telling him that, no, come and open the bank account of a third bank or my bank. So if it was a bank agnostic solution, which means that you might have account in any bank, but still you are eligible to kind of digitize, and we have digitization that way. But from a lending perspective, if I could digitize and telling that, listen, any bank account is fine, we can give you the loan, and documentation process which can be completed in 30 seconds time, and hence the whole acceptance of whole host of documentation. And there are a lot of fintech companies who've really succeeded in having a journey which starts from first click to the last click and availing the loan in 30 seconds. And if you could come like that, and also the other point is, how do you do instant credit assessment? How do you do the process of underwriting? Because all the banks might not have the banking history. So here you leverage whoever is the partner, whether it is, let's say, an FMCG company in this case, who gives you access to data, etc., to help you do the underwriting process and reduce the risk that might be there for the bank or financial institutions. Fourth, I think it is really about hand-holding, education. We need to have support which could be multilingual, interface which is easy for people to understand. And finally, business access. The people have to have business. So I think which is where all the business organizations are more than willing to support, because it works for the business's favor and it works for the merchant and overall in the ecosystem. So if we have a solution which comprise these 5 basic tenets and we are able to democratize it, I think there are companies which are attempting, there are government also is attempting to do this. And I think it is all about everyone coming together, whether it is government, banks, fintech companies, FMCGs, and any like-minded organization on this one. If we can co-create a democratic system and an interface like Aadhaar or UPI, I think it would be a huge revolution. And I think this is something that can be achieved in a time frame of maybe 6 months to an year. And we're really not talking about a 5-year or 10-year kind of horizon. So that's the vision or thought I would kind of want to leave you with. Thanks again for this opportunity.
Satyendraji, what a bold idea. It's an amazing idea, and I think one that merits moving forward with. I know that we have a number of our partners online still with us. I do see Thomas, who's the Senior Product Manager at NPCI, also there. I know that iSpurt, who has been sort of the thought leadership with the government and the other private sector players leading on the Aadhaar and other India Stack or India Digital Infrastructure pieces, would be very interested in taking this forward. We have added this in our engagement plan for responsible merchant digitization, and look forward to having very focused discussion on this. So Satyendraji, thank you so much for your time and for sharing these key lessons from your work in responsible merchant digitization in these focus regions. Our next presenter is from Madhya Pradesh, Mr. Vadvaji.
Good evening, I'm Brahman Bhatt. Good evening.
Good evening to you, sir. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you. As you all are aware, I am Raman Vadva. I'm basically working with Madhya Pradesh State Rural Livelihoods Mission. It's a nationally sponsored scheme which works with the most vulnerable people in the country to support and facilitate them for various livelihoods. And digital financial inclusion, digital financing is one of the most important part wherein we are working with. We all know that for various kind of enterprises, various kind of livelihoods, various kind of upliftment of the poor, microfinance or the financial inclusion has an important part, wherein digital financing has played a greater role, and SRLMs are working for this. In Madhya Pradesh, if I say, basically it's an important part is BC Sakhi model and the bank linkage processes which we are doing it. First is that in MP we have achieved 100% proposal submissions through an online system which was developed by Government of India and have been the pioneer state for this. And it is not important that you submit the proposals. What results, what things which we get is more important. That is, and first is the transparency, of course, then the timely tracking, quicker response from the bankers, and of course, what it has placed within the system is a larger confidence among the community, which has given an edge that it's not only the banks or the financial system is not only for the upper class, but also for the lowest or the poorest of poor. Next step, which we see in our BC Sakhi model or the systems, is the training and capacity building. Madhya Pradesh has taken an initiative wherein we have partnered with private organizations like ITC CRISIL for financial literacy. I'm happy to share that there are some 3,400 master trainers who have been trained and who have further imparted training to almost 4.5 lakh SAG members in the state, and this has helped a greater edge in the system. Further, within this ambit, if I say, in one of our district, that is Rajgarh Byara, it is an aspirational district. We have partnered, I would say that our cluster level federation has partnered with Bank of India and with a Grameen Bank, that is a rural bank, wherein they are the licensing authority for the BC Sakhi. And more than 110 BC Sakhis who are the SHG members are basically more active, and they are working for the community, for the villagers, going door to door, supporting them in the various financial things. Further, this BC Sakhi model we have not restricted to say 10 districts or so. We have spread it across. Though one of the initiative, it is a part of Government of India initiative of 1 GB, 1 panchayat, but one BC, one panchayat. Rather, we have tried to revamp it in our system that we need to have more number of BC Sakhis. We need to have the insurance Sakhis. And I'm happy that in one of the remotest districts, that is Alirajpur, even if we go by the national data related to poverty, be it the sex ratio or otherwise, and also poverty ratio, we see that it is one of the poorest. And here also we have BC Sakhis coming by boats and serving the community. It's not bragging of the women member alone, the way she has worked. It's also that in the remotest areas, the concept of BC Sakhi or the mission motive to reach to the poorest and have them not only reduce the digital divide, but also, I would say it other way, that it's the digi-financial divide that is being reduced in the system. There are much more things which are to be done, but yes, the start has begun, and of course we'll reach to a level. Further, during I'm sharing one of the businesses which was done during this COVID pandemic. Almost 332 crores, precisely 3.33 billion rupees of business was done through 1.1 million transactions by the BC Sakhis during this period. And it's a huge number. If I compare it with the previous years, it's almost thrice of the business which was done. So this is how the community is being served within by themselves only. If we have to use, we can say that's the model is for them, by them, which is working and is being expanded across the state itself. And if I have to say that NRLM is working, yes, across the nation.
Thank you so much.
In a few of the districts, we are having this. This is the last point which I want to say, that we have partnered with some of the banks also. In 4 districts, we are working with Airtel payment banks also. And this is how the system is working. And I am sure that NRLM will certainly reach the last mile to these systems. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Wadhwa. I just want to mention here again how important the national rural livelihood missions in each state is, especially for private sector partners that are looking to, achieve their targets and go deeper into the hinterlands. I think it's remarkable, along with NABARD and other civil society organizations, what NRLM does. So thank you so much, Mr. Wadhwa, for being available, for joining this important agenda. And with this, we have another presentation from Jharkhand, Mr. Amit Jain. We will request you to kindly please limit it to a 5-minute remark so that we may proceed on time. Thank you so much, Mr. Jain.
Yeah, hi everyone, and very good evening. Before I start my discussion, I would like to thank Better Than Cash Alliance for giving us a space for sharing our initiatives on digital payments and SSG digitization. So how I'm framing this, my entire conversation is like how we crack this BC model through SSG digitization, because this in the start of the NRLM in the year 2012, there are too many challenges, like the low penetration of banking outlets. On an average, only 2 to 3 banking outlets were there in the Jharkhand at block level, and the distance of these outlets were around 40 to 50 kilometers. So what happened? Our community members have to bear the travel cost and loss of wages for a day for having a small transaction of 300 or 400 rupees withdrawal from the banks. And sometimes what happened, due to non-availability or insufficient fund at the rural branch, they have to visit twice or thrice in the bank branches. So we had this in mind, but how to crack this? So we have started our process of SHG digitization through our uh, application called Swalekha. Swalekha is a tablet-based application in which we partnered the SHG members or community bookkeepers to provide the data, not only provide the data, to use the data for their decision making among the group, or to assess the health of the uh, uh, their health of the community institutions. When I would like to share this experience, when I sent this proposal to the Ministry MORD in the year 2012, mid of 2012, they have said, do you confident that this woman can operate these tablets? So I told them, my colleagues, sir, that look, it might be possible that this pilot may get failed, but what happened, we will have a byproduct of digital literacy at the village level, which will be creating some digital ecosystem in the later stage. So they and by this belief that the community people can have this digital adoption very high. So we started the tablet Didi interventions, in which the SHG bookkeeper were provided the mobile application, tablets and mobiles. So in the initial level, we also had faced the challenges like low literacy of rural women, and even most of them have not had not even used the feature phones. So they were very hesitated to touch this tablets. So what we did, we asked them, we did a long capacity building exercise with them, and we asked them in the first day of the training session that you play a temple run kind of games. So you will have this familiar with this tablets, or and then this application. One more challenge was that there were very low bandwidth available as far as the network are concerned. So the data travel was a very challenge in the initial phase. So we also had partnered with the Airtel to create a special APN for our data travel. So that was our one initiatives, in which we created more than 10 to 15,000 tablet DDs, so that the community is ready to adopt the technology intervention at any time. Later, in the later stage, what we have done, we partnered with the rural banks, Jharkhand Gramin banks, and the lead banks like Bank of India to engage our SHG members, these tablet DDs, as a banking correspondent Sakhi through their corporate BCs. And we could do this. We have, as of now, 3,500 of banking correspondents Sakhi. Those are providing the tremendous services like SHG, this bank accounts, their withdrawal, their deposits, even the social security schemes of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana, and this Pradhan Mantri Jeevan Suraksha Yojana, and pension schemes at the doorsteps. And so these are the follow.
Mr. Chen, one of the interesting things about the learnings that you've highlighted is the partnership with the fintech and the banks. What would you give as an advice to some of our participants here in terms of how to structure or attract or create that partnership with fintechs and banks?
So so I have 2 to 3 means for offering with the fintech companies, that there are some they have to make a this model very low cost model, because currently the model is very not cost effective. And second one is the grievance redressal, like the sometimes payment gets failed, so the refund is a crucial issue. And and there are some issues in which we are looking like cyber frauds are there, because the community is very actually what I say, they are very prone to this risk of cyber
Great.
attack. So
Okay.
these are the my recommendation to them, and yeah, this is the fine from my side.
Mr. Jain, thank you so much. I think the points that you've highlighted have been uh, also prioritized as important. The cost effectiveness, the access to grievance redressal mechanism. Thank you so much for bringing the specific stories of how SRLM works to address these challenges, and we look forward to greater private sector partnerships. So thank you so much, Mr. Jain from Jharkhand, for your time. We really appreciate it, Mr. Jain. Our next speaker is Mr. Saranathan Ramaswamy from Procter & Gamble. It's another leading FMCG company in the country, and reflecting again on their experience working with merchants as well as women merchants. Over to you, Saraji.
Yes, thank you, Ms. Kizom, and thank you for the Government of India and BTCA for this initiative. And I also thank the government officials and all the industry participants and leaders who have taken time out to share their valuable thoughts. Also to FICCI, being the largest and oldest industry apex body, for playing an instrumental role in bringing together this conversation. It's an important conversation on digitization leading to financial inclusion. And over the next few minutes, I want to share with everyone the efforts that Procter & Gamble is doing in terms of our experiences with digitization of retailers, our experiences, our efforts in terms of driving gender equality, giving more equal opportunity for women. So the first one that I want to share is what are the learnings that we have had basis digitization conversations with retailers. And we had many of the speakers before me share some of these as well. So when we talk to retailers, when we engage retailers, there are broadly 4 things that come out as what are challenges or barriers that they face. The first one really is awareness in terms of how to use. And this is common for men and for women as well. And what are the issues, or how do you really go about using some of the digitization tools and the financial payment tools? And we heard Mr. Ravindra Pandey talk about this as well. So awareness of how to use is a big opportunity we see. The second one is this question of, is my money really safe? When we talk to retailers, many of them are okay to receive payments, but when it comes to making payments, we do hear retailers having this worry if their money is safe. And also this aspect of, is it going to increase their cost of doing business? It can be by way of infrastructure, or be it in terms of service costs. There is this feeling if this is going to cost them more. And you heard Mr. Jain talk about this, which is the aspect of how do I really troubleshoot? If something goes wrong, what is the grievance redressal mechanism by which a retailer will be able to get back their money? So these are broadly the 4 big ones that we have heard from retailers when you try and understand what are the barriers on digitization, with specific focus on digital payments and financial inclusion. And when we ask the question on, are the issues faced by women entrepreneurs the same as men? Here again, there are 2 key things that stand out. The first one, and this is a study that we have referenced here, which talks about women being less likely, 20% less likely to be using mobile internet. And as we talk to some of these entrepreneurs, when we meet them in their businesses, in their stores, this does come out. Their inhibition to use mobile internet, not just for mobile internet usage and for financial payments, is one big aspect that stands out, which is women seem to be seem to have more inhibitions towards using mobile internet. The second one also is this aspect of the gender gap that we see in terms of bank account ownership. Here again, we see that women are less likely to be owning a bank account as well. And given the importance of both mobile phone, mobile number ownership and bank account ownership for financial inclusion, we do believe that women today have a bigger hurdle that they face than men. So these are the learnings that we have in terms of when we talk to retailers about digitization and what would prevent them from adopting the financial payments. And what are some of the learnings that we have when we try to drive some of our digitization efforts? As we all know, over the last 12 months, because of the pandemic, we had to engage our distributors, we had to engage our employees digitally. And here again, there are three big learnings that stand out for us. The first one, we should digitize with a very clear thinking behind why do we digitize, which leads to work simplification, at least in our case. In the case of the current conversation that we have, that I think is very clearly established. Digitization as a means for financial inclusion. The second part is when we plan for it, what is the capability that is needed? And here again, capability. Many speakers spoke about this, can be infrastructure, can be digital fluency that we need to drive in people whom we want to adopt digitization. And the last one is when we execute, how do we integrate the ecosystems? For big distributors, it may be accounting systems by which when they have numerous digital payments coming in, how do they reconcile their receivables? How do we make sure that for the retailers and other folks in the ecosystem, we can integrate all the activity systems that they have today? So these are the learnings that we have in terms of when we try to adopt large-scale digitization, what do we need to keep in mind? When it comes to specific initiatives from Procter & Gamble on retailer digitization, there are three areas that I want to talk to you about. The first one is expanding the scope of revolving credit. This is through our distributors to the merchants whom they service, to the merchants whom they are offering the distribution service. So through our distributors, a lot of the kiranas already get benefit of revolving credit. And with all the digitization efforts, we are looking at how this can be expanded further. We also have a few pilots with fintech partners on how do we really digitize the money flow to expand it to a lot more kiranas than today that we have. And finally, what do we need to do to partner with retailers to digitize the ecosystem on an end-to-end basis? It can be invoicing, it can be other ways of CRM that we do with retailers, and what do we really need to do to partner with retailers? So these are some initiatives just focused from a retailer digitization standpoint. I want to just spend some time on our efforts in terms of driving gender equality. And as you know, we do have a lot of efforts that are at play, and I will just want to share a few with you. The first one, what we have seen is in India on an annual basis, about 2.3 crore girls drop out of school because of lack of menstrual hygiene. What are the efforts that we need to do through our brand Whisper to drive education on menstrual hygiene? We've already educated 4 crore girls so far, and we have committed to educate 2.5 crore more girls on menstrual hygiene, so that they are able to stay in school and realize their aspirations. In 2018, we shared our vision of investing in women-owned businesses. We've already invested about 200 crore in women-owned businesses, and we do intend to spend 300 crore more in the next 3 years on women-owned businesses. The next one is in terms of driving equality behind the camera. Brands, we do believe, are powerful positive change agents. And we do want to make sure that as the country works on better portrayal of women in front of the camera, how do we make sure that there is equal representation behind the camera as well? And over the next 3 years, we will have at least about half of our directors who work on advertisements being women directors. Specifically looking at the need for educating women on STEM, which is again contextual to the current conversation that we are having. We are building technological capability in more than 10,000 women across our external network. And finally, leveraging the government's NEEM mission, we are also focused on upskilling and creating equal opportunities for girls in communities near our plants. So this is a quick summary in terms of our efforts in terms of driving gender equality. And as I said, this is an important conversation on digitization. This is an important conversation on financial inclusion. And I'm glad for the invitation. I'm glad to be here, to be able to hear the Government of India officials and also the other industry leaders as well. Thanks for the opportunity, Ms. Kizom. Back to you.
Saraji, thank you so much. And many apologies for accommodating for the slight delay in your presentation, but thank you so much for accommodating. And really glad to have leaders from the industry through FICCI who is a strong partner and a co-organizer of this very important discussion that has started today and that will continue in collaboration with all the 8 key stakeholders. So thank you again, Saraji. And moving on to our next presenter, we have leaders, fintech payment bank leaders, PhonePe, who is also representing the industry from the Payments Committee. Vivekji, over to you.
Thanks, Kizo. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Mr. Saranathan and Mr. Sitendu from the industry. They are the industry leaders, and it was refreshing to understand the initiative that has been taken by these companies. Quickly, I'll share some of the things that we have kind of undertaken from our side. So we are a young organization. We started about less than 5 years back, and within that, I think we started digitizing merchants in offline environment, the small merchants, less than 3 years back, and since then we have onboarded about 17 million merchants. To give the context of what this means, because from our perspective, we are industry agnostic. So as long as there is a retail front, it doesn't matter to us if it's a Kirana store or any other industry vertical. It could be a restaurant, it could be a saloon, it could be any shop for that matter. Our endeavor is to digitize every shop in the country. And in that regard, we have already kind of penetrated with about 60% of the shops at a pan-India level. Within that, to give a further context, we have penetrated with more than 80% in urban environment and about more than 50% in rural. And still, there's a lot of scope because we are talking about 30 million merchants at pan-India level. We are onboarding about 1 million merchants every month, which means we are kind of digitizing merchants on a platform which is interoperable, which kind of creates digitization at the core. If we look at the penetration level, it's not just urban, by the way. Beyond 500, I would say urban / semi-urban towns, we are talking about 8,000 towns / villages that we have already penetrated. Long way to go, but kind of already there. To further give the context of in terms of what it has yielded in last 3 years. 3 years back, a digitized merchant or a merchant who had the solution had only 2% of their transactions getting converted to digital payments. Now that number within last 2 to 3 years has moved from 2% to about 10%. So so that itself kind of speaks for the kind of advancement that's happening from consumer perspective also, and that's increasing by 100% year on year. Already we have 100 million Indians transacting using one of the UPI platform. We are not talking about PhonePe only here. We are talking about the industry. And that number obviously is going to further explode. Given the COVID scenario, people are even more receptive to digital payments, considering it's a real touchless solution. If we go further, this we have achieved by using about 50,000 freelancers / people we have employed in urban as well as rural environment who are digitizing merchants for us. And in that regard, it's amazing to see more than 10%, which I'm talking about 2 million merchants, are actually women owned or women operated. So that kind of speaks for how the country is also advancing in that regard. And if I specifically look at certain categories, certain states like Himalayan states and northeastern states, we are talking about more than 1 lakh merchants and who are contributing to about 2 million transactions a month. So that's and obviously there's a lot of scope there, but it speaks for the kind of penetration we've already had at a grassroots level. But one thing that is coming out clearly in our study, and this is to kind of extend the argument made by Satendu and Mr. Saranathan, is payments alone is not cutting it for the merchant. because payment for them is more like a commodity. It's not helping them till the time 80% of the transaction actually converted into digitization. It's not really reducing their operations also. So in that regard, we are not just onboarding merchants for payment solutions. We have to give them much more than payments. And if I just kind of take you through in terms of what our platform provides to all these small merchants. First of all, these small merchants can't afford to create their online presence. So we have kind of created our product in a way, when we go to a merchant, we take their lat long, we understand exactly where they're located. We get them to upload, or we do it for them, the kind of shop they are, the kind of category, the kind of products they sell, their phone number to contact, all those certain basic details. And we take that data and manifest that data on PhonePe consumer application, which is used by more than 25 crore users in the country. So basically, how it works is, if I am a user located in a particular location, because with GPS we can locate exactly where the consumer is located, that person will be able to see all the merchants in the vicinity of where he is located, and obviously be able to see what kind of product they are selling. They'll be able to contact them, they'll be able to kind of order, and then merchant can deliver. So basically, without any effort or resources from the merchant side, we have created their online presence, thereby enabling and increasing their business, not just enabling their digital payments, but increasing their business. And why would a consumer to start with? And we have given more reasons for consumers to not just find merchants in the vicinity, but find services such as ATM. ATM is a very unique proposition that we brought to the industry. Thereby, it's just making use of the UPI platform only. So basically, when a consumer goes to a merchant, he'll be able to scan the same QR code, will tell the merchant that I'm not here to buy a product, I'm here to withdraw the money. And for that reason, I am able to increase footfall for the merchant. And obviously, there could be a cross-selling that can happen from the merchant perspective. So it's a combination of various products that we have brought to the table for the merchant, for him to see value in getting digitized, because payments alone, people are kind of iffy and completely building on the thought of they're asking all these questions in terms of what value will it add in my business. That question needs to be answered, and that question will be answered in the long term. But while that is getting answered, we are building much more than just payments alone. And obviously, we have to kind of make it convenient by making the application, the platform in their language vernacular. So we kind of built the platform in 11 languages. They have the sound notification and all that. So that's the value we are able to add to the merchant side. Few things I would just quickly want to mention in terms of what else we would would help in digitizing. First of all, while there's a lot of investment that goes into creating that penetration at a grassroots level, the sustainability of our business obviously is dependent on that small MDR that we can get right now. That is one small help that we would expect from the industry and from government side. And obviously not to stop at that, but expecting government to help us promote and incentivize, because best way to make change the behavior or let merchants learn and possibly build confidence is by seeding the product. And seeding the product, obviously there is some kind of resources required in terms of education or incentivization. These are the two basic things. And other than that, one small thing is that's from the merchant perspective. From the consumer perspective also, if you see, to change their behavior also, obviously if government can lead by example by allowing or nudging all their entities that comes under government with respect to road, buses, trains, all those municipalities, water bill payments, electricity bill payments, if they enable all those from digital payments perspective, that itself is leading by example, and possibly building that confidence with a regular consumer, that the whole ecosystem is kind of geared towards making the platform or the ecosystem digital. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Great. Thank you very much, Vivek ji, for adding that valuable perspective. Again, thrilled to have industry leaders join in this discussion and chart the way forward. Our next presenter is from the Better Than Cash Alliance, Senior Digital Financial Inclusion and Gender Specialist, Ms. Prerna Saxena. Prerna, over to you.
Thank you, Kezom. I think it's a great discussion that we are doing in the run-up to the International Women's Day, which is on March 8th, and emphasizing the need of focusing on women merchants. And I must say that in all prior presentations, we've heard a lot about the enablers required and the various data points which show us how we can promote digital payments for women merchants and also for smaller and micro enterprises which are thriving the local economy in the country. I would just like to focus a bit on the need to use the collectives that we have in our country, be it SHGs, be it joint lending groups, cooperatives, or the regional rural banks, which are being promoted by various government organizations. And we know the reach that they have and the role that they play in promoting financial inclusion. While India has seen so much of growth in reaching financial inclusion to the hinterlands through these collectives, perhaps right now is the time to use them also for promoting merchant payments. And be it the private sector or the government-run enterprises, right now we have to focus on how we can use them better, either by using SHGs as bank sakhis or by spending awareness in the rural areas through RRBs, or also using cooperatives who do so many financial transactions but still are not onboarded on the digital payments. So it's time to do that. I would just like to mention that when we were preparing for this webinar and we were talking to various industry leaders, many of them who are here on the webinar, we kind of heard that there is not enough gender disaggregated data available for understanding the usage of digital payments by women merchants, or even to understand their challenges in accessing mobile devices. So through this platform today, we would like to make an appeal to all stakeholders to collect and analyze gender disaggregated data, and also to then get into partnerships, which we are already seeing today with various commitments happening from both industry side and the government side and the rural entities who could make it easier for women merchants to promote digital payments. I'll stop there, Kezom. I know we're running short on time. Over to you. But great deliberations today, and we look forward to following up with many of you in our future endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Prerna. We are at the closing, and we are already 10 minutes over, so we will keep the closing brief. Mr. Rajaramanji, unfortunately, was called away as we are already over time. So he's asked me to make the closing remarks on his behalf. The closing remarks is really a roadmap for stakeholder engagement. It's identifying what the key roles are going to be for the 8 key stakeholders and how we need to engage. And these are the 8 key stakeholders. It's nothing new, but it's great to see it all together because there's FMCG companies, there's also FMCG distributors, the wholesalers that play a really important role in terms of their networks with the retailers. And this is where I think a huge opportunity exists. Another opportunity that you already heard about from Hindustan Unilever is quite bold and something that we need to pursue. And then another important stakeholder that you see here that's unusual that we need to consider towards this agenda of responsible merchant digitization and building a self-reliant, inclusive digital India are the rural community mobilizers, the civil society, the self-help group, the cooperative networks. They are the strength of digital India and therefore must be part of the solution. As we move on, from central government, there are 4 key commitments to action, and they're all important with MEITI, with the Department of Economic Affairs, Commerce, DFS will be working together with you to make this possible. For the state governments, we're glad to see chief secretaries, principal secretaries from Telangana, from Jammu Kashmir, Sikkim, Andhra Pradesh. The state leadership in enabling digitization readiness is key. And I think the lessons that we've heard are inspiring, and we will need to collaborate more closely with states to implement. The next set of stakeholders are the regulator and NPCI, who collect and track data. And without gender disaggregated data, as my colleague Prerna just mentioned, we cannot reach this area, these areas of need. So thank you for prioritizing it in your commitment. And your leadership is going to be critical. For the next stakeholder group, the banks, your commitment to working with regional rural banks is critical. So thank you, NABARD, SBI, also the livelihoods mission from the government that spoke. For the payment banks and the fintechs, your role in developing value-add services that we just heard about from Vivek is critical for digital payments to be useful, and it is a first step to more services for merchants. So we're thrilled with the commitment to do more and for leading. The next is the FMCG companies who have shown tremendous leadership. They know the retail sector best, and using digital payments to develop new additional value in terms of line of credit for merchants is a win-win for all. The next is the distributors, who are the unsung heroes of merchant digitization. We must help them, and we thank the FMCG companies for tying up with NPCI to celebrate these distributors, kind of like UPI Chalega, but for these wholesalers, distributors, to make them see how they are part of this bigger vision for an inclusive India. And lastly, I want to thank SEVA and other civil society organizations for joining us. Your role as and your voice as voice of the people's needs and ensuring greater transparency by all partners is key. So thank you for your commitment to play a greater role in the digitization of merchants. And I end with the 5-point action item that FICCI, the Better Than Cash Alliance, along with the strong leadership of the government, we will follow up on. I will not repeat them here, but please note that the recording of today's summit and discussion, the presentations, they will be sent across to you. They will also be made publicly available. We thank you for joining this very important discussion and for your questions, for your leadership. With this, namaskar, and thank you, and wish you a wonderful evening. Thank you very much.